and understanding to those who walked this land since time immemorial. Today, we uphold our ongoing responsibility to work together in the spirit of the intent of the treaties with all the First Peoples and nations that call this place home. The town expresses gratitude for the opportunity to build a better community on these sacred lands for generations to come. With that, this regular council meeting for January 16th, 2024 is called to order at 4 p.m. Adoption of the agenda. Council, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none. Administration, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? CAO Panasic.
Nothing from administration.
Thank you, CAO. Council? I would accept. There we go. Thank you. Councillor Taylor.
I move we adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, the motion on the floor is to adopt the agenda for January 16th, 2024 as presented. We get that date fixed, the administration on the... Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. That council adopt the agenda for January 16th, 2024 as presented. Councillors, please vote now. Thank you. Councillor Stashik is voting by hand in favor, as is Councillor Chambers. And that motion carries unanimously. That takes us to section 3, council minutes for adoption. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we adopt the regular council minutes for December 19th, 2023, Committee of the Whole, January 9th, 2024, and special council meeting January 10th, 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, any discussion? Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Administration, is there anything we can do to improve the audio quality out in the...
Through the mayor, if you give us a minute, we can see what we can do on our end.
Thank you, administration.
Testing.
That's quite a bit louder. Thank you. Okay, so council, the motion on the floor is that council adopt the minutes from the regular council meeting, December 19th, 2023, Committee of the Whole meeting, January 9th, 2024, and the special council meeting, January 10th, 2024. Councillors, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question. Councillors, please vote now. Councillor Chambers, voting by hand, is in favor. As is Councillor Taylor. And that motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you for coming, everyone. I know that there's lots of interest in the upcoming municipal development plan and land use bylaw amendments. I want to remind everyone that public hearings are a legislative process that requires council to uphold high standards of procedural fairness and impartiality. For the public hearing, interested parties will be given an opportunity to put forward their views only as it pertains to the amendment under consideration. Council must base their decision only on relevant and reliable evidence. Council must render its decision in an impartial and objective manner. To uphold the integrity of the process, only information relevant to legitimate planning concerns must be brought forward at the public hearings. If members of the public would like to put forward information not relevant to planning considerations of the land use and municipal development plan amendments, that must be brought forward, those must be brought forward during minute with council. And to accommodate everyone, I will be reasonably flexible in the process of minute with council. That brings us to item number 4 and 4.1, rescinding motion RCM 20231219.04. Council? Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. If may, I will make the motion, but I see Ms. CEO Panasic. Are you presenting this just for clarification?
CAO.
Through the mayor to members of council, I certainly can. This is really just a housekeeping item that was provided. I think that this may have caused some confusion. It's, it's under council's authority to provide certain relaxations of process during the meeting. It does not override the bylaw, but just for the sake of clarity in the process, we are recommending that this motion be rescinded. This, of course, does not impede council on utilizing their discretion on any part of the meeting going forward.
Thank you, CAO Panasic. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, CEO Panasic. I'd like to make the motion that council rescind motion RC-231219.04 for those reasons the CEO mentioned. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Taylor.
I'm in favor of rescinding it because section 7.2 does allow for the chair to provide flexibility, and you've indicated that you're going to do that. So I appreciate that considering the topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, any further discussion? Then we will call the question that council rescind motion RC 231219.04. Councillors, please vote now. Vote. Councillor Chambers in favor. Did Councillor Ostashik's vote get included? Okay, I'm just not seeing it. That motion carries unanimously. Excellent. Okay, that brings us to section 5, minute with council. Are there any citizens present in the audience today who wish to speak for minute with council? Thank you, ma'am. Please take a seat, state your name.
Hi, Council. My name is Hannah Fitzgerald. I'm actually representing Options HIV West Yellowhead and HELP today to just kind of challenge you all to be a part of our coldest night of the year that we are doing on February 24th. As we know, when the weathers get to below 30, everybody wants to help. Everybody wants to do something. But I think what we need to remember is many houseless people actually suffer just as much as soon as the temperature drops to 0. That means that they have to walk all night to keep warm. And so what we are going to do on the 24th is a sponsored walk, a 5-kilometer or 2-kilometer walk. Anyone and everyone in the community is invited to be part of it. And there are 3 different ways that you guys can get involved. I bought you each a toque. You can choose if you would like a bobble or no bobble. And you can choose if you would like to financially contribute as an organization, as an individual. That's, of course, most welcomed. We're always looking for sponsors. What I would love most, though, would be for you guys to use your influence, maybe create a walking team, have people on your team, and each of you be a captain, and then, get sponsorships for your walkers, or even just go to social media and share about it. I'll leave some information here. There's a poster too. We do have a big goal. We have a $20,000 goal, and the only way we can do that is if everybody helps.
Thank you very much.
Can I leave this here?
Please hand it to administration.
Yeah.
Councillors, are there any questions for Ms. Fitzgerald?
Thanks, sir.
Thank you very much. I saw some more hands for a minute with council, Mr. Kreiner.
Members of council, I want to say a couple of things relative to the social issues of our community. First, thank you very much for the response you did for the social housing issues, even though it's a very short-term answer. I think it's been very beneficial for the people that during this recent cold spell. And I think that's really important to keep in mind that our least advantaged people in our community are supported like that. I hope we can up with longer term solutions long term, but boy, that's very important. Thank you. Secondly, you've got some items on your agenda tonight that are difficult. I know that. And I want to speak mostly to the notices of motion that are put forward. I believe that the Hinton Golf Course, being your land, and could there benefit from investments to make sure that it's not harmed long term. And as such, I'm in support in principle of those kinds of efforts, including the idea that you explore other land that might eventually replace some holes. Because in fact, the town's planning documents also say that in the long term, hole 1 and 2 disappear. And so it's important to think long term and to foster that. I know that some of the drawings from the past actually show 2 or 3 holes being built to the west of the driving range, going up and down and back. And that's kind of possibilities, but only if you look at things long term. So I support those notices of motion on financial assistance for the golf course using the proceeds of course sale, if that moves forward, obviously. So I wanted to share those things to try and be supportive and long-term minded with you guys tonight. Good luck with your tough decision making.
Thank you, Mr. Kreiner. Are there any other citizens? Please, sir.
My name is Kerry Lavoie. I am a member of the board of the golf course as well as a member. I attended the open houses at the learning center, and I believe I spoke to almost everybody there. And the part that bothers me the most is the point that was brought up was basically the town has sold out the golf course. They're going to rely on the next supposedly person to come in and restore the golf course to a point where it could actually be profitable. All this started with the old, right? The EOI, which states to improve the golf course and make it more profitable. The current proposal does not do that. It does, of course, improve, I believe, the town as in improving its financial standings, but it will basically kill the golf course, and that, to me, is a sellout by the town.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other citizens wishing to speak? Please.
Hi. Nice to see so many people here tonight. I know you've got a lot on your plate.
Can you just state your name for the record, please?
It's Ellen LeBrecq.
Thank you.
I know there's been a lot going on. There's been a lot of communication, and I get you guys have a lot going on. I've sent emails to all of you. I've only heard from a few of you. Some I've heard from 2 weeks, more than 2 weeks past the email sent. I appreciate the mayor responding right away to our emails and also offering to meet with us for coffee and have good discussions. I feel that you gained, we gained information, and I appreciate that. I've had a few others that I've talked to that also, it's been good conversation. I just feel that it's still jumping the gun to be rezoning at this point. I'm hearing things that there's other things coming up in the works that we don't know about yet, but are going to be discussed. That's encouraging. I just really feel like the open house that was held last week was poor in the way it was set up. We, in the last council meeting that I attended, expressed we wanted an actual proper open house forum where people could come up like we are here, ask their question to a panel of Par 99 and whoever wanted to be their council or mayor, and everybody in the room could hear a clear, concise answer. And if you didn't have one, then maybe we could get to a drawing board or meet and get those questions and concerns answered outside of that open house. That didn't happen. We were in a small, crammed, hot room, getting hotter, with a lot of people talking over each other, with a presentation going on in a room. That was not a proper open house of what I feel everybody in this town wanted to see. It didn't happen. You also had a lot of senior people where I work expressing that they would have loved to have gone to an open house to engage in their community, and they couldn't access that open house. That was very poorly run. When you have disabled people in your community not being included, it's not inclusive. If you were in a wheelchair or had a walker and you didn't even have the voice to come and look, see, say, interact, where's inclusive? Where's transparency for them? It's out the window. Some of those people don't own a computer. They don't email. They want to interact with people that they helped build this town, and they didn't get that opportunity. Not fair. So there's that. I'm hearing an awful lot of things in the community that I don't like hearing. And it's about what's the credibility? We're not getting clear answers. You don't know where this school is coming from. You're seeing news things posted from the Fifth Estate, all kinds of things. Everybody's seeing it. Everybody's looking at it. Everybody's hearing it. You're asking questions and you're not getting any answers. And nobody feels secure with where this development is going on that point. And I'm not trying to be racial at all, but there's an awful lot of that coming up. And I don't like seeing our town turn into that either. These things need to be addressed openly in public where people can ask and get an answer. And I feel rezoning and doing all of this is okay, whatever. This is the process. But people aren't being heard. They're not getting the information. And like I said, there's a lot of people that don't do emails. They can't get out. I mean, we have a bus service in town, Freedom Bus, love it. I'd love to see it have more hours, more days. You have people in this community that can't get out of their homes. If you were stuck in your home every day and only had 3 days out of a week to get out to something, and you have family in town that can't get to anywhere with you on a holiday weekend, nothing. You know what? It's all about being inclusive and transparent. And I see we're not there. Our golf course is our golf course. We want to keep it. I'm hearing from housing developers that it doesn't matter if we keep it or not because somebody else is going to build another one west of town. Well, you know what? That's not an answer. Who's got stakes in the game? Makes you wonder. People are asking these questions. They're not being answered. That's where I'm at. I do appreciate your time and I do appreciate your hard work, but we're also working to make sure that it's a good project for our community. And that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Ms. Lebrecht. Is there anyone else in the audience today who wishes to speak at Minnesota Council? Please, ma'am. Please have a seat. State your name.
Hello, Council. Hope everyone's warmed up today. My name is Leah. I'm a First Nations of the Rocky Mountain Cree. This project greatly concerns my people and I. Everything about this project is being rushed to the point we don't have any input. As taxpayers, we do not want this project here in our small mountain town. Like, God forbid this goes through, our people want council to sign a legal document stating that taxes in this town will not increase. Because of this project, we are all like opposed of it. Like, basically, like, look at the group here. Thank you all for coming. Like, we're all struggling within this town, the increase of taxes every year. Like, who will be covering the costs of the improvements and upgrades to the town infrastructure? Like, look at me. I'm not being racial either. And I've heard them have issues with people saying like racial comments or whatever, but I'm First Nations and Treaty 6 territory. And I'm like educated on things too. We have inherent claim to the land, and bylaw 1088 excludes Treaty 6 territory. Also, I'd like to know what the zone was sold for, or what it was zoned for when it was sold. And what the average price per acre goes for in this town, recreational, residential, and commercial.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Sir.
Mulvihill, thank you to everybody who showed up. Thank you to everybody that spoke tonight. Harry, you spoke well of the enhanced and promoted the existing 18-hole golf course. We all know about that. And here we are, minutes, half hour, hour from talking on the rezoning 2 and 3. And that's after all these after 2 years of checks, balances, open house, in-camera meetings, due diligence, Here we are. Huge implications for our community. Fortunately, the golf course has done their due diligence. And for those in the public that haven't read it, I'll give you a copy if you ask me. Hinton Golf Course hired the Browning Design to review the proposed development. Due diligence. Browning Design is a golf course architect as well as has a master's degree in environmental planning and design. And here, in part, is what their summary read. Moving forward with this plan will have a long-term negative impact on the Hinton Golf Course, leaving it a shell of its former self. It went on to say that the plan, as it exists, falls woefully short of that objective and will cause irreparable harm to the Hinton Golf Course for the foreseeable future. To be blunt, the plan is untenable. But let's call this for what it is. This was never about improving the golf course. This was an opportunity for council and administration to divest themselves of this responsibility. And who knows, eventually sell the golf course. And yes, the town technically is holder of the mortgage. But it's not up to the town or for the town to divvy this up and sell it to the first bidder, the highest bidder, or whatever happened there. It is not for the council to act like a slum landlord, raise the rents, drive the tenants out, and again, sell it, divest themselves of it or whatever. And that's what's happening. All through this process, citizens, Hinton Golf Course, we've been treated as if we're opponents and adversaries. We've been shut down at minute for council. We've been censored, denied submissions for the public house. We've had limited opportunities to dialogue with entire council. That has been limited to for a minute with council. That's all we've had to talk to the entire group about the development. It is past overdue that we were given the same respect, latitude, engagement as 999. You know, treated like partners. Town council would do well to remember that in the realm of public opinion, this golf course does not belong to the town of Hinton or administration. It belongs to the citizens. It belongs to the community.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other citizens in the audience that wish to speak at Minute with Council?
Hello, council. My name is Dooley Nelson. I would just say it's still very difficult to hear out there. I I may jump around a little bit. I'll be under 5 minutes for sure. I was intending to speak as part of the public hearing. I got instructions that I'd be able to speak as I see fit, but I'm going to respect your instructions, stick to zoning at that part of it. First, I just want to read the last paragraph of the legal advice from the Alberta Municipal website, municipality's website regarding public hearings. Public hearings must comply with the rules of procedural fairness applicable to administrative proceedings, which includes the right of the public to be heard by an independent and impartial decision maker, and the right to know the case to be met and be given the opportunity to respond. This means participants must have access to not only the proposed bylaw, but also any information or reports which will be placed before council in reaching its decision. Failure to adhere to the rules of procedural fairness can result in a challenge to the bylaw by way of judicial review. And I'm just going to jump ahead, speaking about some of the projects specifically. I would like to highlight a couple of things that demonstrate a lack of clarity, maybe understanding regarding the project that today's decision may enable. Members of council in November repeatedly stated that it was a $30 million project. Subsequently, the proponent published that it was a $150 million project. Then at the open house last week, the proponent revised that number down to $80 million. If council and the proponent are 500% off on the cost of the project, it shows a lack of understanding of the project and its implications, whether those implications are good or bad. If the proponent's own team are $70 million apart on the cost of a project, that's a little bit troublesome. I will now speak to what was censored from appearing in today's agenda. The proponent's only other project in Hinton has 3 separate outstanding liens totaling approximately $108,000. This is publicly available information listed on Alberta government's website. So there's nothing, there's no espionage to get it. It's right there. I'm only speaking about the quality in because the proponent chose to include it in their marketing materials and made that link as one of the PAR 999 projects, and it's the only one in this community. Along with the liens, the titles also show that 247 Pembina was purchased for $425, which is again contrary to the 1.2 million that was shared by PAR 999 in their open house. Any numbers around the appraisal, sales price agreement, offsite levies, incentives, concessions have not been shared. So I can't judge on those. I've always been a numbers person. As the numbers take away personalities, they allow black and white decisions to be made and really are the foundation. Unfortunately, with this project, the numbers have kept changing. I'll leave the rest for the public hearing. I think the rest is all within that in detail. So thanks. I just hope everybody that speaks, including council, can speak up just a bit. It's almost impossible to hear anybody back there. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Mr. McDonald.
You know, a lot of people here have laid blame on PAR 999. However, I really think the finger needs to be pointed at all of you. Okay, and the mayor and parts of administration with allowing it to get to this point. Giving away recreation land for $200,000, then rezoning it to commercial worth over millions will, yes, raise questions. Sorry, Mayor Nissan, I know you are not allowed to respond to the $200,000, but thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. McDonald. The speaker's up a little loud. Are there any other citizens in the audience today that wish to speak with Minute with Council? Excellent. Seeing none, we'll move on to Section 6, Delegations and Presentations. Administration, can you confirm that we have none?
Through the mayor, that's correct. We do not have any.
Thank you, CAO Panasi. That brings us to Section 7, the public hearing, and specifically 7.1 Municipal Development Plan 1084 TAC 2. The following public hearing is held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act. The following rules of conduct will be followed during this public hearing. Presentation should be brief and to the point. Submissions must be from a relevant planning perspective. The order of presentation shall be entry of written submissions, those supporting the bylaw, those opposing the bylaw, any other person deemed to be affected by the bylaw. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. There will be no debating the bylaw. However, questions to the councillors or other parties will be accepted through the chair. I hereby declare the public hearing relating to bylaw 1084 TAC 2 open. Secretary.
The purpose of the proposed bylaw 1084-2 is to amend the municipal development plan as follows. Revisions to figure 7 future development map as shown in Schedule A circled in red. First reading was given to bylaw 1084-2 on November 21st, 2023. Notice of this public hearing was advertised in the Hinton Voice on January 4th and 11th, 2024, and advertised on the Town of Hinton's website.
Thank you, Secretary. Are there any late written submissions relating to the bylaw? Secretary.
There are none.
Thank you, Secretary. Is there anyone who supports the bylaw and wishes to speak? Seeing none. We will go to those who wish to speak against the bylaw, and we have a list. Dooley Nelson.
Thank you, Council. First, I would like to mention that all advertised material for the Municipal Development Plan amendment didn't actually show what was happening with the land. I had added a red and a yellow section, but there was nothing in any of the documentation that showed what that actually was. The legend didn't include that it was residential or commercial. And then the documentation that supported just said, as shown in Figure A. So if somebody just picked up the newspaper or looked on the website, they wouldn't actually know what was happening with 1084-2 because it wasn't included. So I just want to make sure I'm staying on topic here, guys. I want to take the opportunity to once again highlight the statement that was made at the public hearing basically a year ago, that the replacement of any hole shall be constructed to a similar size and configuration. This still, unless something has changed in the last week, has not taken place. There's no plans for it to take place. And this municipal development plan amendment would prevent that from happening. Council, administration, and the proponent all chose to leave this public hearing till late in the process. Generally, in these cases, all parties expect that by leaving the work till the end, the community would be sold and the project's merits, jobs, investments, economic development, access to facilities, or whatever else. The proponent has spoken about the large investments and human capital that's gone into this project. This is something that any developer does at their own risk. To mitigate this risk, the developer could have simply requested the rezoning and municipal development plan happened earlier in the process. With that in mind, if you just look at the municipal development plan, absent of any associated project, I don't believe at face value that would have passed council. It would have taken away a golf hole, and it wouldn't have made any sense to update the municipal development plan unless there was something that it was leading toward that was known by council. So I think we're all doing our best to separate the project from the land use bylaw and municipal development plan, but it's as citizens very difficult to do because one doesn't happen without the other. So look forward to seeing how the public hearing goes. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Mr. Kerry Lavoie.
Oh, yes, my name's Carol Lavoie. And according to the EOI, the first line was to improve the golf course. this is not part of what has been portrayed. And I believe that alone would put a question on how the development moves forward. The next question that I have is the sale of the land was according to the Gulf appraisals. So therefore sold dramatically cheaper than land that would be described as business frontage or whatever. I'm sorry, or rezoned as business land. So the question is, you know, did the town, go ahead.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Can you speak closer to the microphone? Get right in there. The people in the back are having a hard time.
Sorry. So the sale of the land was according to Gulf appraisals, not Gulf appraisal land, not business land. And as soon as this proposed land use goes through, the land would be dramatically increased in value. That's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Next, we have Wilf Quasney. Thank you. And Wilf, I'll ask you to speak directly into the microphone. Get right in there, please.
You'll hear me. Don't get yourself. Anyway, what I'm here for is I imagine that council and you received this. Did you happen to go over it? It was emailed.
Please, if you would be so kind as to read your comments directly into the record.
Okay, so what I'll start out with is to the council and the mayor, the attention. This project must not proceed prior to addressing these concerns. And the concerns are, we have areas in town that have great potential expectations and came at the expense of the taxpayers, and they never matured. They're still ongoing. We got Smith Street, still filled, is still not filled, and the same as it was since the 1980s. We've got Echo Industrial Park, which I know none of you people want to talk about, and especially the senior counselors. This was supposed to be the state-of-the-art facility, the Echo Industrial. Right now, it sits at 70 to 80% empty. Town was involved in that one. Instead, we're going on to another project. The Ridge at Thompson Lake. Great expectations, but never completed. We have the development of Highway 16, north side of Highway 16, and the west side of Drinnan Road. Sits empty, big expectations. Nothing being done. We got Thompson Lake subdivision where Big Rock Dodge sits. Been open since the 1980s. Still not filled in. We got Dow Drive that was started in this town. It hasn't been done. We got lots on Fellowborough Road that are not completed, still have to be filled in. No demand for it. We got Steel Crescent, lots sit empty, no demand. Then we go over to here. Then we got Qualico Developments project, abruptly ended. Lots are sitting empty there. Nothing is going on. And from what I understand, that part of that agreement that they had with the town and the golf course has been broken with servicing of the water and the sewer. These projects cost the taxpayers of Hinton dearly and continue to, because we got to do the servicing to these places. We got to grade the roads. We got to plow the roads. We have to look after the services. After attending the open house. Oh, sorry, I missed one here. Now, the town of Hinton councillors, mayor, are determined to push forward with another project that will end up being funded by the taxpayers. Like, mark my word, it's going to happen, just like the rest of them. To me, after attending the open house and discuss the project with developer, architect, and the mayor, which I did with you, and also with you, Councillor Stuart Taylor, and the attendants that were out there. I have spent a lot of time a lot of hours going over this project. I have come up with my own conclusion. Do not proceed with this project. I see this project as the biggest scam that's ever hit Hinton since I've been here in the early 60s. Town council, mayor, and administration are failing the taxpayers dearly if this project proceeds. I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Up next, we have Brad Kopp.
Good afternoon. Quick question, Mayor Nissen. Is this the public hearing specifically for the MDP amendments?
Specifically
So
for
will
the
you
MDP.
come back to a rezoning public hearing later in the agenda, or is this my?
No, this is the municipal development plan only.
Okay.
Discussion for the land use bylaw
So I
will
think
happen
I'll
after this.
wait.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else in the audience that wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed bylaw change for the municipal development plan? That will be read in the land use bylaw public hearing that's happening next. Thank you, sir. In the next public hearing. It does not apply to this public hearing, as I understand it. Thank you, sir. Okay, is there anyone deemed to be affected by the bylaw and wishes to speak? Again, for the municipal development plan. CEO Panasic, did you have anything to add?
Through the mayor, no, I don't.
Thank you. Are there any comments from council's planning advisors, administration?
No, there is not.
Thank you. Do the councilors have any further questions? Do the councilors require further information? Councilor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Sorry, we'll do this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question about the process for receiving information from the public to be included in the public hearing information package, and I think Mr. Nelson spoke to it. I had emailed administration for clarification on that process. And I'm happy to wait if it's more appropriately suited to the agenda item itself. So if I could just get clarification from administration on whether that would be appropriately asked now or during the action items, please.
CEO Panasic.
Through the mayor to Councillor Magoon. So when we're looking at any rezoning or any amendments to statutory documents, like Mr. Nelson had said, we are subject to not only the Municipal Government Act or our bylaws, but also common law and procedural fairness. Procedural fairness does apply to the evidence and the considerations that are being forward for council to consider. Any member that did have those who may not have been submitted into the specific public hearings do have an opportunity to come forward to council, state their case as to why it is relevant from a planning perspective, and for council to rule on that. But we are subject to all of the relevant common law procedural fairness items as it pertains to administrative actions, and that it does include public hearings. So that was the reason that items that were clearly irrelevant to the decision at hand were rejected.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. Councilor Magoon, follow up?
Not a follow-up. I need to be very careful because we are pursuing a public hearing, but I'll reserve comment for later.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Do any other councilors require any further information? Seeing none, I hereby declare the public hearing relating to bylaw 1084 TAC 2 is closed and will accept a motion to adjourn. Councilor Hawes.
I make the motion to adjourn the public hearing.
Thank you, Councilor Hawes. Council, the motion on the floor is to adjourn the public hearing for bylaw 1084 TAC 2. Administration, can we? Oh, we're going to be voting by hand. So motion to adjourn, all in favor? The motion carries unanimously. It's not showing up correctly, I guess. Okay. That will bring us to item 7.2 on our agenda, the public hearing for land use bylaw number 1088 TAC 18. The following public hearing is held pursuant to the Municipal Government Act. The following rules of conduct will be followed during this public hearing. Presentation should be brief and to the point. Submissions must be from a relevant planning perspective. The order of presentation shall be entry of written submissions, those supporting the bylaw, those opposing the bylaw, any other person deemed to be affected by the bylaw. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes. There will be no debating the bylaw. However, questions to the councillors or other parties will be accepted through the chair. I hereby declare the public hearing relating to bylaw 1088 TAC 18 open. Secretary.
The purpose of the proposed bylaw 1088-18 is to amend the land use bylaw plan as follows. Part of Lot 4, Plan 4703 TR from P Park and Recreation District to CRV Commercial Recreation Village and RV Residential Recreational Village, as shown on Schedule A, including districts. Attachment 2, edits overview that summarizes the proposed amendments. First reading was given to bylaw 1088-18 on November 21st, 2023. Notice of this public hearing was advertised in the Hinton Voice on January 4th and 11th, 2024, and advertised on the Town of Hinton website. 3 written comments were received.
Thank you, Secretary. Are there any late written submissions relating to the bylaw? Secretary?
Yes, there are 3.
Can you please read those for the record now? CEO Panasic.
Mr. Mayor, one late submission was from Mr. Mulvihill, but he is present and would like to speak to that. So at the discretion of the chair, if we could, we do not have to read that one into the record. If Mr. Mulvihill would like to speak on his own submission, we could do that. If he does not, we will certainly read that into the record.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. And Mr. Mulvihill, I'm going to ask, you did express an interest in reading your comments directly? Yes. Thank you. Not at this time. We'll get to that in order. Thank you. Yes, please read the 2 remaining late written submissions then, Secretary.
To the Mayor and Town Council. I do not support bylaw 1088-18 by extension bylaw 1084-2 and urge council to listen to the citizens of this town and vote in accordance with their collective wishes. This parkland belongs to the citizens of Hinton, and the overwhelming majority of citizens are not supportive of the proposed amendments. The rezoning of this parcel places the town-owned Hinton Golf Course in a very precarious position. It decreases the value of asset while maintaining the existing liabilities. Even if the proceeds of the sale are allocated to the golf course, the risk that the Golf Course Society will be unable to meet its commitments to the town would be elevated. If this rezoning is passed, the modified course and restaurant will find it increasingly difficult to be profitable, competing against businesses which are closer to the highway and easier to access. In essence, it sets out the Golf Course Society to fail. The expression of interest that instigated this rezoning aimed to support a project that will increase economic opportunities and raise the profile of the town. It was looking to attract businesses and families to the area. The proposed zoning will do none of these. Economic opportunities will not increase for the existing populace who will find housing costs increase and minimum wage positions added as the businesses listed on the permitted uses under recreation village land use generally offer low-paying service positions such as childcare work and room attendant. Families will not be able to afford to move to Hinton for these positions. The profile of the town will be subject to increased scrutiny, and the performance of a post-secondary school will reflect direct on the region. The inclusion of the foreign students will add an additional layer of risk as they are defined by their precarity and provide a labor force ripe of exploitation. A town-owned asset, the golf course, will be less enjoyable for residents and less attractive to prospective users. The rezoning of this parcel does not support the welfare and best interests of Hinton. As the amendment is written, a series of strip malls or hotels could be developed next to Highway 16. While the original intent of this process was positive, the bylaw does not provide the structure that residents require to move forward. I wholeheartedly urge each of you to vote against this bylaw. She has a reference, the Shadowy Business International Education. There's a link on the report, and it's from Sue Allen.
Thank you.
To whom it may concern. It is critically important for the Town Council of Hinton to understand this public hearing is about rezoning Prime Park recreational lands into commercial lands at the request of Eagle River Planning Services on behalf of the developer PAR 999. The rezoning of this land has been directly tied to the development since day one. If the council or the developer wanted it to be in a vacuum, the rezoning should have happened first. This golf course has been used since the mid-60s. It's been estimated that close to 500,000 rounds of golf have been played in this time frame. That's the equivalent of 500,000 people walking or riding these hallowed grounds, contributing to the local economy, whether it is local citizens or tourists. This area has become a crown jewel in the recreation portfolio of Hinton. Yes, in 2019, the golf course ran into some financial problems. That was an extremely wet year followed by COVID. I understand that the golf course borrowed money from the town, and this loan will be paid in full this coming summer. The outstanding debt, I understand, is the mortgage sitting at approximately $900,000. In August of 2021, the town requested expression of interest in EOI from persons interested in enhancing the golf course. I don't think the town meant to sell a portion of the golf course at a fire sale land prices. Therefore, taking prime recreation land from the golf course and converting it to commercial land will be the detriment of the golf course. After the so-called PAR 999 open house, a poll was taken with one question. should we consider rezoning this land to commercial? A total of 148 votes were cast, with an astounding 94% saying no. This land should not be rezoned under any circumstances. The Town Council of Hinton and the Hinton administration should work with the Golf Society to enhance what we have, not destroy it. If the Town Council feels that taking away recreational land is a good idea, then bring it to a referendum and let the citizens of Hinton decide what direction the council should move in. As a result, I implore you not to rezone this land. Joseph A. Agostino.
Thank you, Secretary. And that is all the late submissions, other than the one that will be read, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Is there anyone who supports the bylaw and wishes to speak? Sir.
Members of council, I feel like the 6% now, from the last letter. Essentially, we're dealing with providing zones for some land here that's pretty important to the community. Very few golf courses are designed with residential adjacent or with some opportunity for people to actually live on the course. So this is one of the things that this project and this proposal is facilitating. I think it enhances the golf course. The question of the commercial part is more struggling for me because it's squeezed. And so the question will really become, can the town facilitate a solution where the golf course is not harmed and the project's commercial activities can still happen adjacent? That's not finalized and not yet to be determined. We did see at the open house in early January some modifications that seemed to move in the right direction from what was previously drawn of the golf course and its interface with the commercial zone. I don't know if it's enough, and that's stuff that has to happen yet in some fashion. In fact, I would urge the town administration to continue those discussions and make that successful in a joint way with the Golfing Society and the developer. What I think is important is that those details get publicly announced 2 or 3 weeks before they're signed off. And that's in the subdivision/development agreement stage, which is later if the rezoning goes forward today. So those are important steps to make this project work. I know I'm not going to be popular tomorrow because of my support of this bylaw, but I believe looking at the true long-term, there can still be a win-win here. It's going to take a bit more work. And unfortunately, the process is what it is. Land use zonings happen before subdivision and development agreements. Those are my comments.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience today who supports the bylaw and wishes to speak? Ma'am?
I'm Marilyn Bolger. I would say of the people that I associate with, at least 95% are for this rezoning to allow for the potential that would arise from it. I've heard over the years that I've lived in Hinton that we want growth, we want more industry, we want more educational opportunities. We want the ability to keep our graduates here in Hinton and offer them something that is substantial. And I think this upcoming project has all that potential. I don't think it's a negative thing to rezone that land. I can't see it as a negative thing. I've seen it as a very positive thing. And I hope that, because I think positive people are less prone to speak up, we don't really get the balance. But I know there are a lot of people in Hinton who feel as I do, that if we rezone this land, there is enormous potential for this town in a positive way. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else in the audience who supports the bylaw and wishes to speak? Seeing none, we'll go to the opposition and we'll start with Mr. Mulvihill. You can read your letter into the record, please.
And you've got a copy of this? Thank you. The Hinton Golf Course has a long and proud history, starting from a 9-hole course in 1962 to the challenging 18-hole gem we have now. It's important to understand it was built with a vision and sweat equity of citizens of Hinton volunteers. Changing the golf course designation from parks and recreation to commercial residential, what can possibly go wrong? Just the word commercial detracts and erodes from the very vision and promise of our course. The foundation of a volunteer-built recreational facility is the unwavering trust that whatever is built now will be here for future generations. The tenure of the footprint is never in doubt. Faith that the community and council will have your back, will be a supporting partner, is a backbone of this trust. In reviewing this process, one is alarmed at the expediency of the process. Call it 10 days, call it 30 days, whatever. For expression of interest is hardly an appropriate timeline to solicit all the interested parties. That timeline can't be justified by anybody. Look at tonight's agenda. We've got a public hearing on this rezoning right now, quickly followed by a vote on the same. Hardly time to reflect on the considerations raised at this hearing. As Wolf said, whatever occurs out in the rezoning does not lend itself to an oops. We don't need to be reminded of the dust-filled, tree-removed, vacant commercial lots along Highway 16. Every one of them came with enticing promises. The town of Hinton talks of checks and balances, but truthfully, we have lost our in-house capacity to meaningfully monitor, supervise, evaluate any large projects. Our community is at the mercy of consultants, contractors, and developers, very few who are local. Our community is in turmoil over this rezoning. Trust and faith in our town administration is being tested and eroded. Please put a pause on this rezoning until further due diligence and in-depth consultation with the Hinton Golf Course and our community can be undertaken. I, Tom Mulvihill, am against the rezoning of this proposed land. Sincerely, and I've been a citizen of Hinton since 1979, a member of the golf course since 2013, and I love our little gem. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mulvihill. Next, we have Dooley Nelson.
Hello, council. And just for your guys' knowledge, there was no checkbox for those deemed affected. So it forced us to choose whether we were for or against. I would have chose differently if I would have had that checkbox there. I am going to speak directly about the rezoning. Administration of council have suggested over the past few weeks that we, as citizens, should separate the zoning from the project, and that this process is to determine whether the rezoning is the best use of that land. So with that in mind, I'm going to separate the two. I do believe as the population increases and the availability of land decreases, that the highway frontage of the golf course could be best served as commercial. Currently, there's a lot of land available and for sale along the highway corridor. If, as part of a more broad land disposal policy, council wanted to start disposing of town-owned land around the golf course, I would suggest starting with the wedding hole, as it has the lowest impact on an important town asset, which is the Hinton Golf Course. If any other part of the golf course land on the highway is to be disposed of, it should be part of a more broad plan to redevelop and rework the golf course as a whole. The sliver of land that is being rezoned as residential may be a low-risk move for the town, as it could spur some housing development. I would question the viability of a residential project in that space due to the cost of development, but that would be on the developer to perform that due diligence. My other concern about rezoning this land without the more broad golf course plan is that it could create limitations with what could be done to rework the course in the future. The most pressing matters for Hintonites are affordability. For most, the cost of housing and the cost of staples like groceries. If we are going to sacrifice an existing asset that currently enhances people's health and well-being, it should certainly address the acute issues that face Hintonites. This rezoning fails to do either of those things, as it is designed for high-end boutique residential, along with resort-style retail and services. One of the most important things is the procedures that have us here today. I question whether this bylaw is being presented appropriately. First reading was done on this bylaw and a public hearing was scheduled. The bylaw presented in the public hearing has been amended since first reading. Neither administration nor council are permitted to make changes or amendments to a bylaw between first reading and the public hearing. If feedback is received from the community through the public hearing process, administration can recommend those changes to council and council can make those amendments. Because of amended bylaw being presented as part of the public hearing that was not part of first reading, I believe there's an increased risk to the municipality as a whole and a higher likelihood for challenge, especially for something that has drawn so much attention. If some of the zoning does move forward, I do have a couple specifics. I would recommend that council remove childcare facility as well as eating and drinking establishments from the residential zone. These are not typical within our other residential land uses in the town of Hinton. This zone is literally steps from commercial zoning that allows for all of these types of uses. From a simple common sense safety standpoint, I don't know that council should be encouraging a daycare within the stray ball area of a golf course. The same goes for park, but I'm not sure if park is part of the bylaw or not, as it was not presented in the public hearing, or sorry, in the first reading, but it is now part of the public hearing. Obviously, my thoughts would be the same for having a play park within the areas that I strike the ball. If tonight you are all ready to pass second and third reading, my hope is that you're able to stand up and say that this is the right decision for the betterment of Hinton in the medium and the long term. I think short term, it's going to create some challenges for everybody. And I would love for you guys to say, we've done our due diligence and we are 100% confident in the successful execution of this potentially transformative project. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Nelson. Next, we have Mr. Kerry Lavoie.
Hello, Mr. Mayor and Council. I bring into question with this development in the safety of people that are going to be in the residence on between the holes of 13 and 14. Also, it comes into question that nobody's addressed is the fact that people will be walking straight across the course and across holes to enter into the hotel resident or hotel assembly, or sorry, let me read it. Complex. The problem with that is we know that everybody will be taking the shortest route, which is straight across the course where people are trying to play. And two of those holes, they are blind. So therefore, they're putting themselves at risk. The land use proposal would not benefit the golf course. It will actually make it less playable. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Lavoie. Next up, we have Wilf Kwasny. Did you have further comments, Wilf, or did you have further comments for this one?
Just the one on there. So if I can bring that one up that I missed would be good. I noticed when I was going through it, now I'm more comfortable here. Maybe the next time I'll be better yet. But I missed the one on it was on all these developments that have gone through. We have got approximately in town, we've got from 10 to 30 hydrants that were put into these areas that I mentioned that are inoperable and are not being maintained, and there is no money to fix them because there's no progress in these areas. So what I'm saying is that, do we want to add another 5 hydrants on the west side of town, which maybe 2 might be used in the first 6 years, from what I understood at the meeting when I talked to the architect? Because he said the second phase of this project was not going to go ahead for probably 6 years. And that was right from the architect. So do we want, and what's going to happen, the town is going to have to maintain all that road to the hotel, which goes up first, right? Am I correct? Who's going to maintain it? Once the hotel is up, who's going to maintain it? It's got to be the town. And the town is the taxpayer. So we're going to be maintaining a road to one hotel. 2 years later, they're going to put in the school. 2 years later, this is what I told, they're going to be putting in that school. They're going to move from where their Yellowhead Consortium used to be, which is the J, whatever you call it now. They're going to move from there into that building. 6 years from the date of the start of the hotel motel, they're going to start the second phase. That's what I was told by the architect. And I had a good chat with him. So is the taxpayer not the one that's going to be paying for all the maintenance? Or is the motel going to be paying for clearing the snow and sweeping the streets and whatever it takes to keep the place functioning?
CEO Panasiak, any comments?
Through the mayor to members of council. So as it stands right now, none of the road network that's being provided would be is being contemplated for public use. It's being looked at as a part of the internal development. So that would be the developer who would look after those roads. As it pertains to the intersection, as the intersection at the entrance, that would require upgrades. It would require upgrades, and that would be a responsibility of the developer.
Thank you, CEO Panasiak.
So that we're assured that the developer will pay the costs of the maintenance on that road and the maintenance until this project is finished. So the town don't take it over after the 2 places are built. The town ends up with it, and then we'll be in the same situation as we are with Echo Industrial Park and all these other developments that I mentioned. We haven't got, in most of them places, Echo Industrial Park is one. I don't think, and I haven't looked at the finances, but I don't think that they're getting enough tax money out of that area to pay for the services that are there. I don't think so. And I don't want to see the taxpayer end up having to do the same with this project. Because like right now, like I'm saying, right now, the way it sits, it's 70, Echo Industrial Park is roughly 70 to 80% unoccupied. So it's really not paying for itself. So somewhere out of our pockets, the money is going to keep that thing operating. Or if not, it's just on the verge. Because if you run a hotel, I think it's 42% occupancy. Below that, you're going in a hole. Above that, you're starting to make money. I think you can use the same numbers for Echo Industrial Park and all the other ones that are up.
Thank you, Mr. Kwasny.
I thank you for your time.
Next up, we have Brad Kopp.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The number of reasons that this rezoning adversely impacts the Hinton Golfing Society is long. However, the fact that the society, with only a few exceptions, has been generally treated like a chewed boot throughout the process is just as concerning for me and gives me very little confidence that anything will change after rezoning is complete. Maybe this was the intention, and if so, then it has been accomplished. Job well done. But unfortunately, that gives me no choice, but as the Golfing Society president, to get up here and speak firmly against this rezoning bylaw. Allow me to begin by saying that the whole thing has been, quite frankly, ridiculous. The process leading up to tonight's meeting and public hearing has been crookeder than a snake backing up a hill. There's been a lot of chatter in the community over the last couple of weeks and months, and much of it might be unfounded. I truthfully have no idea. But I hope each of you can take a step back from Facebook and just take a moment to reflect on what's actually being proposed. We, and by we, I mean you, are contemplating taking a valuable recreational asset and dismantling it for the purpose of commercial development. Forget about the Golfing Society and PAR 999. They're actually irrelevant to that statement. Just think about the fact that you're faced with a decision to rezone recreational land into commercial land. I can't imagine that any of you decided to run for council with that as one of your key priorities. In fact, I can't even imagine that any of you had that on the back page of your campaign brochure. Plain and simple, this rezoning decision will have a deep negative impact on the Hinton Golf Course. And I'm confused by the rush to make it with so little work being done to address the negative realities that will be faced by the golf course in its wake. Redesigning the golf course to take advantage of town-owned land along the highway is a fair notion. But rezoning it without giving any meaningful thought to the side effects and a plan to address them is badly misguided. It would strike me as obvious that a rezoning of this magnitude, taking a chunk of recreational land and redesignating it for commercial use, should have had far more meaningful consultation with stakeholders, such as our group. Instead, we were given a handful of token meetings where everyone in the room smiled and nodded their heads as we expressed our concerns, but seemingly no one kept any notes. Only in recent weeks has there been any headway made on hiring an expert in the golf course field to weigh in on the plans. This suggestion I made to a couple of counselors, a couple of staff members a year ago. At this stage, I want to be clear that safety, course layout, and the long walk through a construction zone or a commercial development has not been addressed from our standpoint, and nor from that of Gary Browning, the respected golf course designer that this society, frankly, didn't have the money to pay for, but had to retain to weigh in on this thing. And a copy of that was sent to each of you. Please take this opportunity to make things right for this valuable recreational asset. The approval of this rezoning with the current plan for development that accompanies it will cause troubling uncertainty, undoubted hardship, and significantly increased liability for the Golfing Society and for the town. Ask the questions that should have been asked, make the calls that should have been called, that should have been made, and consult with the consultants who should have been consulted with 2 years ago. Then, once that's complete, and you can vote on this rezoning with confidence that you have all relevant information at hand, go for it. But as of right now, I'm shocked and disappointed that I need to be here to say this. There is still crucial work to be done and a million unanswered questions. And until that work happens and questions are answered, rezoning a historic, well-used, and well-loved piece of recreational property for a resort or a strip mall should not even be an option. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kopp. Is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak in opposition to the proposed bylaw for the land use bylaw public hearing? Seeing none, is there anyone deemed to be affected by the bylaw who wishes to speak? Are there any comments from council's planning advisors, administration?
No, there is not.
Thank you. Do councilors have any further questions? Councilor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a question about one of the letters that was read into the record. One of the letters referred to a poll that was done. I was just wondering, does administration have any information on what that poll was? I'm not aware of any poll that was conducted for public feedback in this matter.
CEO Panasiuk.
Through the mayor to members of council, I'm not aware of the specific that was being referred to. The only feedback being from the open house with Part 999. I'm not sure if that's what was being referenced to. But other than that, I'm not specifically aware of that was being referenced.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Taylor.
Can I ask administration, Dooley said there were some differences between the first and the second reading. My understanding is there was a difference, but you were proposing to us to amend it into the second reading. Can you explain that, please?
CAO Panasiuk.
Through the mayor to members of council. So for second reading, we are proposing from administration that council consider an amendment that would allow for an additional use of park within that zoning. So again, that is put forward. That is at council's discretion to include that amendment or exclude it, but that is being presented by administration.
Okay.
Councilor Taylor, follow up? Or are you done? Councilors, anything further? Councilor Taylor.
I just want to clarify, under residential recreation village, discretionary use, eating, drinking, minor. It's a discretionary use. I just want to clarify that because it's a discretionary use, that will come up in the design phase of the project for construction, where it's reviewed at the design to see what that looks like. I'm not necessarily against it. I just, if it's a super huge pub, maybe not appropriate, but if it's something a little more smaller, can you confirm that or have a comment on that?
CEO Panasiuk.
Through the mayor to members of council, and if our senior planner would like to jump in with anything else, you can feel free. But yeah, so that's included as a discretionary use. The intent there is that we would look at the specifics of what that would look like. Then you have to make a determination whether it fits within that design or not. There is also some advertising requirements that come along with that, and some to public input, right of appeal. There are a number of other steps associated with that. So we haven't looked at any specific design for that area, but if that was proposed, we could consider it if whatever the specifics are makes sense within that area.
Thanks.
Do councilors have any further questions? Councilor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One question I do have is this development proposes a school for permitted uses and then discretionary uses that speaks to the sale of cannabis. So could you speak to that, please?
CEO Panasiuk.
Through the mayor to members of council. So yes, it does. A lot of those are going to be dependent on our own bylaws related to setback requirements. As of right now, we do include stricter regulations than is required by AGLC. I believe there is an opportunity within a retail area to include it and a school, but that would require likely further discussion on how we work that as the school and the educational component of the development is primary to what they're doing. Looking at any type of cannabis retail shop would be discretionary, and that would only be dependent on if the requirements for setbacks on any kind of school allow for that.
Thank you, CEO Panasiuk. Councilor Race, you're good. Councilors, any further questions? Do councilors require further information? Seeing nothing from council, I hereby declare the public hearing relating to bylaw 1088 TAC 18 is closed and will accept a motion to adjourn. Councilor Chambers.
I'll make a motion that we declare the public hearing related to bylaw 1088-18 as adjourned.
Thank you, Councilor Chambers. Council, the motion on the floor is to adjourn the public hearing for bylaw 1088 TAC 18. Is this going to work online there? Okay, let's, councilors, please vote now. Oh, Councilor Race voting by hand, and that motion is carried unanimously. Thank you to everyone in the audience for maintaining decorum and a civil meeting this evening. It's very much appreciated. At this time, we're going to take a 7-minute break, and we will reconvene at 5:35. Thank you. Thank you. And this regular council meeting will come back to order at 5:38. It brings us to section 8 of our agenda, the action items, and 8.1, the municipal development plan amendment for bylaw 1084 TAC 2, second reading. CEO Panasiuk.
Thank you, Mayor. I will turn over any comments to Ms. Walker.
Thank you. Good evening, council. The proposed bylaw number 1084-2 was subject to the public hearing previously held. The amendment is to revise the future development map to provide for residential and commercial development. This was also illustrated on the legend of the maps that were advertised. The main access will be from the proposed new Carmichael Lane intersection, and staff housing will access from the Keel Drive. The proposed amendment is in line with the West Area Structure Plan, and therefore administration supports the proposed rezoning and recommends council provide second and third reading this evening. Thank you.
Thank you, administration. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just need clarification from administration because I'd indicated previously I'd speak to this. The comments for submission as related to the public hearing from Mr. Nelson that were not admitted into the documentation, was that pertaining to MDP 1084-2 or 1088-18?
CEO Panasiuk.
Through the mayor to Councillor Magoon, are you referring to the public hearing and the information provided? Through the mayor, at this time, I don't remember specifically which plan that information was being submitted for. I believe it was for the land use bylaw 1088.
Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think that's where it was. I just wanted to clarify. Again, I'll save those comments for 1088-18. I think it's more appropriate that they're entered under that particular line, so I will hold on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillors, anything further here? Any councillors interested in a motion? Counselor Magoon.
Yeah, just a point of information from administration. If you can procedurally identify for me, if a motion to table occurs, if there's no does there A, need to be a date attached, or B, can a motion to table just be made to lay it to rest on the table?
CEO Panasiuk.
Through the mayor to members of council, so we can table it for a specific date. If it is just to table, typically would be returned at the next council meeting.
Thank you, CEO Panasiuk. Counselor Taylor.
I'd like to put forward the recommended action that council give the municipal development plan number 1084-2 second reading. And the reason why I speak in favor of this is that I'm in favor of growing the town. And I think land that's near the highway that all those cars travel on should be zoned for its highest and most productive use. And I think that's some sort of commercial development. In general terms, the benefit of growing the town is that it increases the quantity of direct and indirect property taxes, and it has numerous other benefits. Such benefits allow the citizens to enjoy current not those little C things, the amenities, and consider future ones like rec centers and water treatment plants. And some of the current amenities that we have include the community golf course, which the taxpayer has taken on as to help them out with the Alberta Treasury Branch loan and the operating loan. The Golf Society's done very well with that. And as well the golf carts as a guarantor. Will any such development along the highway near the golf course affect golf in some way? Yes, I believe that it will. It's also my belief that in the short term, council can mitigate these impacts with sensitivity to the needs of the golf course through negotiations with any developers through the sale and future development agreements. In the long term, funds can be set aside from direct property tax revenues and land sales that could enhance golf's future playability and financial viability in this town. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Taylor. Counselor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't speak in favor of the motion on the floor. For myself, one of the purposes of the public hearing process, and even stretching back to that, the gathering information stage, it's uncovered for me very clearly is that this division of zoning, in my opinion, and certainly that's just mine, I don't want to impose that on anyone else, doesn't fit the best needs of the community as a whole. I don't believe that that means that there's not a solution to be found in the long term or the long run, but I think that comes along with hard work and more work. So for myself, and I have more comments, but they're again more appropriately applied to 1088-18. So at this point, I'm not prepared to support this motion. I think that more work can be done. I think more work should be done, and it should be done collaboratively. That's quite frankly where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Magoon. Counselor Chambers.
I also will not be speaking in favor of supporting the proposed motion. It's been a lot of learning over the last little while. There's been a lot of comments. There's been a lot of feedback. I do support this notionally. I do agree with the comments of Counselor Taylor about what this could be and what this could mean for the town. But I really believe that we owe more work to the community. I believe that it can be done. It can be done in a short order, but I believe that there is some more work that we can do. I think great work has been done over the last 6 weeks to get more information out. And I believe going forward, we can continue on that trajectory, but I cannot support it tonight.
Thank you, Counselor Chambers. Counselor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to be speaking in favor of the second reading. Some words that come to mind. The real work is done during the subdivision and development agreements. This is just the first step of rezoning. And then that's when the real work becomes when we start to dig into those development plans and subdivision and have those discussions where the real work is done. And and I'll leave my other comments to the next one, but I think that's where that really lies. So I'm in favor of this moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Haas. Counselor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too will support the motion on the floor, the motion before us right now. And I'm supporting it for many of the reasons that Councillor Taylor spoke to, Councillor Haas spoke to. Just because we may pass this tonight does not mean the work stops. We will continue working. And one thing I just want to add here is a lot of us have lived in this town for many years, some of us 40 years plus. You're here tonight because you love Hinton as much as I do. So I just want to thank you for that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Counselor Race. Council, the motion on the floor is that council give the municipal development plan number 1084 TAC 2 second reading. Anything further from council? Counselor Magoon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in terms of the zoning, I think there's actually a benefit to be gained by taking some time to do this in a way that tries to be more inclusive of the concerns of the community. One of the things that was mentioned during the public forum by Mr. Kwasny that I do agree with was this notion of, we have a number of developments throughout the community that haven't been developed or finished over the years due to a number of reasons. And it's certainly not fair to sort of, attack business or attack, they just, for one reason or another, they sit there. And then there's other developments in town that throughout the years have caused polarization amongst the citizens. I think what we have is an opportunity to say, there's a chance to go back and work with the community to bring more people on side. And I think that's the positive to be gained through adversity here. So again, why would I, try to sway my fellow councillors to give this a little room to breathe and dig into it a little bit more deeply, is to find the common ground, to find the middle road that might actually find some benefit for everybody in it. But I think, at the expense of doing it right now and finding a way to just take a moment, breathe, do it the right way. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Magoon. Council, anything further? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question that council give the municipal development plan number 1084 TAC 2 second reading. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is carried 5-4, and Councillor Magoon and Councillor Chambers against. Councillor Ostashik.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move that council give the municipal development plan number 1084-2 third reading.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Would you like to speak to it?
I would speak to it quickly, yeah.
Go ahead.
One of the questions that was brought up earlier in the evening by one of the presenters during the public hearing was if council would support this if it didn't come in the way that it did. And speaking only for myself, I have to say I would. This is an opportunity to come out to develop some commercial property that has the potential to bring in significant tax revenue that can help go towards supporting things like the rec center and water treatment plant and all the other amenities that we do need in our community that we currently have no way to support. That, coupled with some of the motions that were put forward as notices of motion that we're going to address later this evening, I think gives us an opportunity to be able to take steps to work collaboratively amongst council, whoever the potential future developer is, administration, and all the other stakeholders to be able to make this change in the MDP to be beneficial for the community, for the golf course, for the developer, and for everybody. I do see that there can be an opportunity that this is a win-win-win. And I think that the way we go about this is to move things forward so that we can drive this work ahead and work collaboratively and make that win-win-win reality. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Councillors, the motion on the floor is that council give the municipal development plan number 1084 TAC 2 third reading. Any further discussion? Seeing nothing from council, we'll call the question that council give the municipal development plan number 1084 TAC 2 third reading. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is carried with Councillors Magoon and Chambers voting against. That brings us to item 8.2 of our agenda, Land Use Bylaw Amendment number 1088, TAC 18, second and third reading. CEO Panasiuk.
Thank you, Mayor. I will turn over the presentation to Ms. Walker.
Thank you. The proposed bylaw 1088-18 was subject to the public hearing previously held. Second and third reading of the bylaw is necessary to change the lands from P Park, Parks and Recreation District to two new land use districts, RRV Residential Recreation Village and CRV Commercial Residential Village. As CAO Panasiuk just spoke to earlier with regards to be consistent with the land use districts that are in the land use bylaw, administration has made an edit to remove park public and park private from the CRV district, the commercial district, and replace with just the word park. And that's to be in alignment with our LUB with all the other districts. Also, I added park to the recreational district. Again, every district in our land use bylaw does have park within it. And this is to provide during subdivision to look at providing some sort of little tot lot for kids. It's also in line with our minimum design engineering and development standards where we do require so many tot lots within so many meters within residential districts. The proposed amendment is in line with the municipal development plan and the West Area Structure Plan, and therefore administration this evening is asking to support and provide second and third reading to the bylaw. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, administration. And council, I've been advised that the strategy here, if we are so inclined, is to pass the original wording in second reading and then to do any amendments that council wishes to have added. CEO Panasiuk.
Through the mayor, members of council, we can certainly do it that way. Alternatively, we can include amendments in second reading. It would require a member of council to move second reading, and then for a councillor to move to amend what administration is recommending on that clarification related to the definitions in park. So we could move second reading, and then we could move to amend pass second reading as amended.
Thank you, CEO Panasiuk. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is where I'll go back to some of my comments and concerns about acquiring information through the public hearing process and information that was included in the agenda portion of the packages. And I want to start by saying I don't want to speak in absolutes because that's unfair. It has the potential to inflame feelings, and I don't think that's what the community needs. That being said, I'm concerned about a few things, and I need some clarification. I've been a councillor since 2012, and I'll use the phrase "I don't recall," because again, I don't think it's fair to say this never happened, because if it did, then I'm wrong, and that's not the right way to do things. I don't recall in the past ever having a submission by a member of the public not admitted to the public agenda package that had met the deadline to be admitted. And if that's the advice of administration, that's fine. I accept that. I'm not going to fight it. For myself, though, I think it's concerning because it presents a certain public perception that the process then is not as transparent as it should be. And I appreciate the fact that Mr. Nelson was given a chance to read his comments to council today. I think that's appropriate. But honestly, the last thing we need as a community is to inflame those sorts of tensions. And so that's my concern with the procedure, is by not including that into the original package, it's just one more thing to fight about. And then we lose sight of the actual topic at hand. So that's a concern I have. I'll back out and go into the queue again because I have something separate, Mr. Mayor. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. And CEO Panasiuk, can you speak to that at all?
through the mayor and members of council. So I don't have anything new to add other than that authority that authority is provided to the CAO through the procedural bylaw. I can't speak to whether it was done in the past. But what I can say is that our legal responsibilities through procedural fairness and to ensure that council will consider that the relevant information that is an administrative practice that is very common in municipalities. We do outline if there is a disagreement from whoever has submitted that to be able to provide that to council. Council under their discretion can certainly consider any information that they believe to be relevant that may not, that I might see different. So ultimately it is council's authority, but I do have an obligation as an apolitical and the advisor from council to look at these things specifically to ensure that I'm upholding procedural fairness to the best possible standard that I can. And that's what I did. And that was the judgment call that I provided. I didn't see the relevancy on a few submissions. Some of them I just thought were irrelevant to the topic, and I wanted to ensure that we kept that information on track.
Thank you, CAO Panasiuk. Councillor Magoon, yeah.
And again, I want to make it really clear, because again, the last thing the community needs is infighting or non-productive back and forth. So to that end, I want to make sure that the CAO has my utmost respect on his rulings. If something's legislatively his call to make, that's fine. Again, I've appreciated working so far, and I want to make sure that there's no element of disrespect in that. If we have a difference of opinion, it is what it is. And I appreciate your work. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillors, anything further? Councillor Taylor.
I would like to give the recommended action that council give the land use bylaw number 1088-18 second reading. And then I have an amendment I would like to discuss, but other people maybe could speak first. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a point of information still on the recommended action. Can administration speak to the discretionary use identified as surgical facility with or without overnight accommodation? Can you please explain to me what this is, why it's included in the recommendation, why it was added in this particular edit, please?
CAO Panasiuk.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. So this is submitted by the applicant, but they have provided a little bit of context. The vision for this is the ongoing expansion of healthcare services in Alberta to allow for private surgical facilities on a basic level, looking at laser eye surgery clinics, where the front runner in this area with orthopedic surgery providers such as Alberta Surgical Group in Edmonton, a recent extension of the concept, while the care facility health zoning or definition potentially allows for this. The incorporation of Bliss Hotel into the operational structure could provide support in short-term convalescence and recovery supervision. As a personal aside, or I will leave it at that. But yes, so this was included as a discretionary use to provide the applicant to consider this as a potential use in the future, depending on the interest that they may receive for different types of uses as it pertains to the commercial zoning.
Thank you, CAO Panasiuk. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, very much. I will be supporting the motion put forward by Councillor Taylor. I do have a question to administration. I don't know if you can answer this, but I will ask it. Would cataract surgery fall underneath what you just spoke to?
CAO Panasiuk.
Through the mayor, members of council, possibly. That is a difficult one to answer from us. But what I'll say is that when we're looking at the zonings, these may not be specific, but the idea is that, you know, I believe that the applicant has looked at the zonings and wanted to incorporate a number of different possibilities that they could legally pursue if the opportunity came. I don't think this is hard and fast, as this is exactly what we want to do, but they did want to include that as a possible discretionary use should the opportunity arise. So it certainly could incorporate a number of different day surgeries if that was the case.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, CEO Panasic. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now I'll speak to the motion now that I have the information. I won't be in favor of the motion on the table. For myself, again, I think this in the long run, in terms of what's best for the community, would have better success if it was given more time to be explored with the necessary stakeholders in a more developed way. And again, at this point, I don't think there needs to be a rush as far as the community is concerned. When we come down to making the best decision for the community and for the adjacent affected lands, notably of which is the golf course and the stakeholders who are involved in that particular parcel, this needs time because there might be additions to this document that down the road we might want to see added to this when the community has some input, you know, over a longer stretch. Citizens might have ideas for the proponent, or some ideas might naturally grow out of a collaborative process about what fits within this particular motion. And again, I'm all for working collaboratively, but that needs time in order to do that right. So at this point in time, I won't be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Chambers.
I as well will not be supporting this motion this evening for very similar reasons. I just feel like we need an opportunity to have some questions answered. We maybe need an opportunity to clean up and narrow down some of these permitted and discretionary uses in order to protect the long-term vision of both the party and the town itself. And I wholly believe we can get there, but we need time. And that is why I'm not able to support that tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Taylor.
I have an amendment. Would you like me to do it now or wait?
Let's get Councillor Stashik.
Thank you.
Come back. Councillor Stashik.
I had a proposed amendment as well. Go back to Councillor Taylor if you'd like.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Taylor. Oh, Councillor Stashik, you're up. There you go.
But no, he was first in line. I'm just kidding. Thank you. I would like to move to amend land use bylaw amendment number 1088-18 to remove park public and park private from the RRV district and replace with park, also to add park to the CRV district as per the edits overview attachment 2. I would like to look to administration to make sure I captured all of the proposed amendments that they were suggesting.
Administration, if I'm correct, we've got the CRV and the RRV swapped in this motion. Can you confirm that? I'm seeing some nods. And CEO Panacea, can you confirm that that captures all of the requested amendments from administration?
Through the mayor to members of council, yes, that captures everything. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Councilors, the motion on the floor is an amendment to the Land Use Bylaw 1088 TAC 18 that council direct administration to remove park public and park private from the CRV district and replace with park. Also to add park to the RRV district as per the edits overview. Council, any discussion? Seeing none, we'll call the question on the amendment. That council direct administration remove park public and park private from the CRV district and replace with park. Also to add park to the RRV district as per the edits overview. And councillors, please vote now. And the amendment is carried unanimously. So council, the motion on the floor is that council give land use bylaw number 1088 TAC 18 second reading as amended. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion that council move multi-dwelling unit development up to 4 stories from permitted to discretionary. Just you say a word.
Yes, Councillor Taylor, just a moment. That is specifically for the RRV zoning. Can we get that captured in the amendment as well?
Okay.
Councillor Taylor, did you want to speak to it?
My concern is that if we leave it in permitted, I'm not necessarily against it, depending on where it is. Like if it's maybe behind the trees and you can't see it for those people that live along the golf course. But at least if we move it to discretionary, we'll have the town will have a chance to look at that through the development plan process before the construction is complete and see how it fits in better than we would if it was in permitted. And my concern would be what it might look like to the people that own houses there. And we have some ability to look at that and work with that during the design.
Okay, Councillor Taylor, understanding your intent and looking at the proposed bylaw, there is a permitted use in the proposed bylaw of multi-dwelling unit development up to 4 stories. And under discretionary use, there's a multi-dwelling unit development over 4 stories. Would you be interested in refining your amendment to simply change the number of stories in the 2 references in the proposed bylaw?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was concentrating on the permitted use. Yeah, right. I see that it's in discretionary use there already. No, I would like, can I modify my motion?
Yes, please.
That council remove multi-unit development up to 4 stories from permitted use. It's under discretionary use. So that was my intent. I just misread it that I was concentrating on the permitted use, not the discretionary.
And just to clarify, Councillor Taylor, are you looking to remove multi-unit development as a permitted use, or are you concerned only about the number of stories?
I am concerned about removing the multi-dwelling unit development up to 4 stories from a permitted use, but I'm okay with leaving it as a discretionary use.
Understood. Councillor, the question I'm trying to ask is, would you be open to a multi-unit development up to 2 stories, or do you want no multi-unit development?
No, I'm potentially okay
in
with
permitted use.
4 stories. But if it's under discretionary uses, we could look at that during the design phase and say, we could take care of that during the design phase. But if it's in the permitted use, it'll be more difficult to take care of. So that's my intent.
Understood. Thank you. And CEO Panasiuk, did you have something to add in this?
Yeah, through the mayor to members of council. I just want to make sure that it's clear that those are two separate specific uses. One is anything over 4 stories and one is up to. So in the permitted district or in under the permitted uses, it is permitted for a multi-dwelling unit development to build up to 4 stories. We have separated those two for anything over 4. So any larger one would be discretionary. Any one up to 4 stories would be permitted. So the original development the original motion, if that it was Councillor Stewart's, we can certainly make that amendment as put forward by Councillor Stewart.
Thank you, CL. Councillor Taylor.
My original wording was correct. I got confused. My intent is to move the multi-dwelling unit up to 4 stories. I thought somebody was trying to tell me it was repeated. It's not. Over to the discretionary use. That's my intent.
Understood. Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
I apologize for that. Thank you.
Nope, thank you. We all appreciate clarity. Okay, so council, the motion on the floor is that council move the multi-dwelling unit development up to 4 stories from permitted to discretionary use in the RRV district. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mayor Nissen. I have to apologize. I'm a little bit confused too. I thought Councillor Taylor's intent was that multi-unit dwelling up to 2 stories would be in permitted uses, and then anything over 2 stories would be in discretionary uses. So I have to, if I may, ask Councillor Taylor if that was the intent, because this completely moves any multi-unit dwelling from out of permitted uses.
Councillor Taylor, do you have a response to Councillor Ostashik?
Yeah, that's correct. I would be okay with multi-dwelling unit development up to 2 stories in a permitted use. It's just if it's 4 stories or over that I want it moved to the discretionary use.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And may I suggest an amendment to your motion that perhaps you would consider that council move the multi-dwelling, or that council direct administration to change the multi-unit development up to 4 stories to multi-unit development up to 2 stories in the permitted uses of our RV district. And then to complete, no, let's stick to one item at a time here. Does that wording work for you?
Yes.
Councillor Taylor? Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And then just in the permitted uses in the RV district. And then just please remove the words to discretionary uses. Thank you. And Councillor Taylor, I'm going to read this one more time, and you're just going to confirm that this meets your intent. Council, the motion is that council direct administration to move the multi-dwelling unit development up to 4 stories to multi-unit development up to 2 stories in the permitted section in the RRV district. So yes, administration, please change that word move to change. And then behind the word permitted in the bottom line, add in uses.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, just a small housekeeping item in a proposal for the wording. We can simply say that council amend, and then instead of direct administration to change, we could simply say that council amend. It's a little bit more clear.
Thank you, CAO Panasiuk. Let's please do that. Counselor Taylor, does this motion meet your requirements? As do I.
Yeah. A permitted use, yes. I'm still okay with 4 stories as a discretionary use, but I can fix that the next amendment.
Thank you, Counselor Taylor. So counselors, the motion on the floor is that council amend the multi-dwelling unit development up to 4 stories to multi-dwelling unit development up to 2 stories in the permitted uses in the RRV district. Counselor Magoon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think there's a running theme with my comments tonight. So in short, I can't support the amendment on the floor. I mean, insofar that I don't feel like it's had the time for discussion with, again, the stakeholders that are involved. You know, in this case, I have no idea what impact this might have on the project. So I think making that decision tonight would be premature. I understand that this is a zoning discussion, but it's the zoning discussion for the purposes of a project. So again, I'm making a decision that impacts potentially a stakeholder, and I have no idea what that impact might be on the planning. I have no idea what the impact might be on the adjacent stakeholders, you know, the landowners, the golf course again. And this sort of reemphasizes that concern. This is where I'm going to circle back to why this process needs more time. It's not a bad process. It's good to get people in a room and say, hey, look, what are our concerns? You know, to borrow a phrase from one of our citizens who I respect, let's throw the material up on the whiteboard that we have a concern at. Let's look at it. Let's circle back on the discussion, but we can't rush that. And in this case, if we're just making quick amendments that potentially have a very serious impact on the project, I don't know if that's the best style of decision making. I don't think it is. So in this case, I can't support it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Magoon. Counselor Taylor.
I do agree with you in that I'm concerned about the impact of this on the proponent as well. That's why my next amendment is to put this back into a discretionary use. We're down the road, so we can, if there is a 4-story building, it's a discretionary use, we can take care of it at the design phase. It's not necessarily a give me by being in the permitted use. That's my intent here. And then we can have a discussion with the proponent. I don't want to affect his project unduly either. So that's why why I'm doing this. On the other hand, this is a 4-story potential that could affect people. So I think we should have some ability to look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Taylor. Counselors, any further discussion on the amendment? Okay, then council, the motion on the floor is an amendment that council amend the multi-dwelling unit development up to 4 stories to multi-dwelling unit development up to 2 stories in the permitted uses in the RRV district. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion is carried 6-1 with Counselor Magoon in opposition. Counselor Taylor.
Hope I get this right. I'd like to amend the bylaw to add multi-dwelling unit development up to 4 stories into the discretionary uses. And I think I've spoken to that. That gives us a chance, the design phase, to look at this in a more constructive way. Thanks.
Thank you, Counselor Taylor. And CAO Panasiuk, with this motion, what's the cleanest option for you with the multi-dwelling unit development over 4 stories already in discretionary uses? Would it be cleaner to switch that to 2 or cleaner to add a second one? Go ahead.
Through the mayor, one suggestion I would have that we could certainly include, based on the amendment that was just provided, that a multi-dwelling unit development up to 2 stories is permitted. Looking into the discretionary, just to make it a little bit cleaner, we can certainly, we could simply amend multi-dwelling unit development where it says over 4 stories, we could just simply say over 2 stories, and that just incorporates all different types of multi-dwelling unit development. So anything over 2 stories is going to be discretionary. Anything 2 or under would be permitted. And I believe that would match up with the intent of the amendment.
Thank you, CAO. Councillor Taylor, would you like to adjust your motion at all?
Yeah, that matches up with the intent. Thank you. If we can do that, that's a good change. Thank you.
And the word change at the top to amend. Thank you. So council, the motion on the floor is that council amend the multi-dwelling unit development over 4 stories to multi-dwelling unit development over 2 stories in the discretionary uses in the RRV district. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be supporting the proposed amendment. I think this is a good solution to a complex problem. When I saw that it was permitted up to 4 stories too, I had some questions about that too, and wondering if that was appropriate permitted use throughout this development. But I think by the mechanism that we've used in the last 2 motions here, it does restrict it to 2-story, which I think is appropriate in the setting that we're discussing on the golf course. But it does still allow the discretionary use of anything over 2 stories. And I think this solves a couple problems in the particular area that's being rezoned. It accomplishes making sure that there isn't anything that's going to be an eyesore that's sticking out somewhere in a place that's not appropriate. But the other thing to keep in mind is that amendments that we're making here today are comprehensive amendments to our land use bylaw in general. And this does still give the opportunity for anything that is in the future zoned as RRV, the opportunity to have permitted use for a 2-story building. And if they do want to go higher than that for some reason in some future RRV development, that can be considered as a discretionary use. So I am in support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Council, anything further? Then we'll call the question. The council amend the multi-dwelling unit development over 4 stories to multi-dwelling unit development over 2 stories in the discretionary uses in the RRV district. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is carried 6-1 with Councillor Magoon voting against. So council, the motion on the floor is that council give land use bylaw number 1088 TAC 18 second reading as amended. Any further discussion? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question that council give the land use bylaw number 1088 TAC 18 second reading as amended. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is carried 5-2 with Councillors Magoon and Chambers voting against. Council? Councillor Magoon.
Actually, at this time, I'll withdraw my comment. Thank you.
Counselor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to move that council give the land use bylaw number 1088-18 third reading as amended.
Thank you, Counselor Hawes.
If we speak to it.
Please.
Thank you. As a counselor, I've thought long and hard about this, and I think of what if this opportunity were to pass us by, if we were to learn of this and we didn't do anything about it. I look at the vision of our strategic plan, respectful of our past while creating our future with safe, active outdoor lifestyle, culturally rich, diverse, and Hinton as a community of opportunity. Part of our mission is to promote Hinton's strengths and capturing sustainable opportunities. I believe that this area is a strength of Hinton. This golf course is a strength, which why our expression of interest focused on that and how to enhance that area to bring more tourism, more opportunities to our community. And I look at continue on to our strategic plan that town explores land acquisition to expand commercial and industrial economic opportunities under economic development. I know we didn't acquire this land, but we had land available. And a part of our economic development strategic plan was also to utilize the expression of interest to attract investment and development. So we utilized that. We got this attraction to that development in a period of time that gave ample opportunity for people to come forward. We had 3 proponents, and they were all, well, 2 were looked at. We also looked at part of our strategic plan is development opportunities, and the benefits of locating, developing, and expanding in Hinton are consistently communicated and marketed. We went out to the markets and got an expression of interest of an opportunity. And I do believe that this opportunity greatly benefits our community in various different ways. And I still believe that at this stage, again, a lot of the work is still going to be done at the developmental stage. This is when we will be, before anything is done, we're looking at the development permits, we're discussing what's discretionary, what the golf course will look like in the past, and I'm confident with the motions that are coming forward that a lot of those questions that we have will be answered through those motions and start to look at that. So that's why I'm in favor of third reading on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Hawes. Counselor Magoon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will speak to that, particularly to the support side of things and why I'm not in favor of this motion right now. I think currently we have a report that came to us courtesy of our friends and neighbors at the golf course from Browning, indicating, that there's some serious potential impacts based on, what we're looking at before us tonight in terms of the motion and some of the permitted and discretionary usages. To that end, we're, council, and I appreciate council support with the motion. We've also sought at the request of our golf course friends and really experts, was to seek advice from a third party on this project and what the impact will be. But in this case, we're making decisions on land usages before we have that advice. So really at that point, I guess I'm a little frustrated because I feel like, well, that's moot now. Further to that, with the comments about, a lot of these questions will be ironed out through the developmental stage. Sure, for myself, if this was, a restaurant, or a small development. Those things happen all the time, but we're not dealing with a piece of private land. We're dealing with a piece of municipal property that is, it is a gem, was the word that has been used from our community members, and I agree. And so I think the important thing here is that we engender a sense of trust in the process over the long term. And that's what I've heard is lacking. People feel that that's not there. Doesn't mean it can't be addressed. Doesn't mean that we have to torpedo the whole thing. What it does mean, though, is that there's work to do. So why does it have to be done now versus, in my opinion, be done right? I think if we take more time, we take a look at it, we unpack some of the issues and some of the solutions. That's the important thing, is solutions. It's one thing to sit and just hammer on a project, but what are you willing to do to make something palatable? Which is why both Councillor Taylor and myself have some notices of motion, call it the insurance marker for myself, to try and give it some longevity potentially and something that's palatable. But at this point, if you're asking the community to trust in the process, they don't feel it. So we have more work to do, and I'm okay with that. There's nothing wrong with that, but I think it's something that we owe it to the community to do, which is why I'm not willing to support the motion currently. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, any further discussion? Then we'll call the question that council give the land use bylaw number 1088 TAC 18 third reading as amended. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is carried 5-2 with Councillors Magoon and Chambers voting against. That will bring us to item 8.3 on our agenda, draft parks bylaw number 1184. Oh, Councillor Taylor, order.
This is the point where you usually ask, is there anything else for
Sorry.
item 8.2, and I have something else for 8.2. Could you do that, please?
Yes, Councillor Taylor, what do you have remaining for item 8.2?
Yeah, I'd like to put an amendment through if I could. And the amendment is that council direct administration to provide options regarding development agreement, development permit, notification, publication, and opportunities for public review and on and appeal, to give us options so we can talk about the options to do that. And that might not exactly be the right wording, but my intent here is that this project is sensitive. So if there are things that we can do as we go further along to be, instead of just putting it in the paper to notify people who are directly affected, if there are extra things that we can do to make sure that information comes out or things in the future, that's sort of my intent with this, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And CEO Panasiuk, would you like to speak to this motion at all? Clarify your understanding of it for council?
Yes, through the mayor and members of council. So I'm clear on this. I don't have any concerns about the motion that's forward. I think what we're looking at for a report to council to look at what our options are available to look at this, how we advertise our development permit and notification that is dictated by the land use bylaw. My understanding is that would only be related to discretionary uses. We can certainly look at, just given the public interest in this particular development, most permitted uses are fairly benign, and but given the interest, we can certainly look at options and bring that forward to council to look at bolstering that communication and our process related to public notifications of development permits. We can also come forward and bring forward to council options available when it comes to the development agreement. That development agreement ultimately is a public document subject to personal information, but that is a public document. We can look at options on how and what's the best way to provide that to the community. So we can certainly develop a report related to this. That's my understanding of the intent, and if so, I don't have any concerns about it.
Thank you, CEO Panasiuk. And Councillor Taylor, just to confirm that meets your intent with this motion?
Yeah. The law may require us to do this, but if there's other things we can do in order to be more communicative, and that's kind of my idea here.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillors, the motion on the floor is that council direct administration to provide options regarding development agreement and development permit, notification, publication, and opportunities for public review on discretionary uses and appeal. Council, any discussion? Seeing nothing from council, will call the question that council direct administration to provide options regarding development agreement and development permit, notification, publication, and opportunities for public review on discretionary uses and appeal. Councillors, please vote now. That motion is carried unanimously. Council, is there anything further for item 8.2 on the agenda? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item 8.3, draft parks bylaw number 1184, CAO Panasiak.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Before I turn this over to Mr. DeBodrop, I would recommend that in the recommended action, just for cleanliness of what we're doing, to separate the motions that council gives first reading to parks bylaw number 1184 as presented. That being the first motion, and directing administration to engage stakeholders for input and return the bylaw and engagement results to a future meeting of council. That be motion number 2, if that is acceptable to whoever may move, whoever the mover may be. But other than that, I will turn this over to Mr. DeBodrop.
Thank you, CEO. Good evening, your worship and members of council. This evening, we are presenting for council consideration draft parks bylaw number 1184 with the recommended action as slightly amended just recently. This item was first introduced to committee on January 9th, 2024, initiated by the detachment commander of the RCMP, requesting that the town institute closed hours in parks and other town lands to assist them in managing noise complaints, illegal activities, and to address squatter camps in town. Administration reviewed the existing curfew bylaw 947, the nuisance bylaw number 1101, and the Provincial Trespass Act. Comparable communities were also polled to see how they manage similar issues. Administration recognizes and included in the recommended action that there are stakeholders that will need to be consulted prior to implementing this bylaw, as the hours of closure could impact users of recreation areas, pathways, and parks, most notably during the evening hours in the summer months when there is plenty of light well into the evening. The primary intent of this bylaw is to reduce public safety risk on town property and to significantly reduce the wildfire risk posed by warming fires in squatter camps. With this legislation in place, it gives the RCMP and other police agencies another mechanism to quickly remove illegal and dangerous camps. With that, your worship, I will open this up for any questions. Administration will be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. DeBodrop. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make the motion that council gives first reading to the parks bylaw number 1184 as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Really just briefly, I think council, this dovetails a lot into some of our policing meetings, that we've had with the fire chief, with our staff sergeant, and then also reaching back to some of the work that I had done on the policing committee years ago, is that they're not new issues. Certainly the fire chief indicated that there are some new considerations that apply to it. But there's also some ongoing issues that as a community we've dealt with for years. I mean, like one case was sort of like the ongoing issues up and around the cemetery area and sort of how that impacted residents in that area. So for myself, I'm very happy to give it first reading tonight, seek public feedback and see if there's any areas of consideration moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. And council, the motion on the floor is that council gives first reading to parks bylaw number 1184 as presented. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As stated in the committee of the whole, when this was first brought back to us for discussion, I'm in full support of this. I'm looking forward to hearing back from stakeholders. I know we've had some indicators that some community members would like to see the time maybe adjusted, but personally, I'd like to see first what stakeholders say and go from there. because I'm hoping too that we can come to some sort of agreement, because my concern is if we increase it to later, it still affects people that might be shift workers and other things as well. And it, you know, I know in law enforcement, there's a discretionary component to enforcement, right? So someone walking their dog at 10:30 at night causing no ruckus is not necessarily going to be told to go home versus someone else that you know is causing a disruption. So personally, I'd like to see, you know, that's my thoughts on it. So before we enter any, you know, adjustments or anything like that, we hear from them first. But I'm in full support of this, especially to the, you know, the ongoing. I've had many conversations with citizens about noise concerns, camp concerns, and then with the fire issues that are coming, well, have always been part, but it's even more a risk at this point. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm in support of the motion as well. I think this proposed bylaw strikes a fair balance between citizen access and community safety. That said, though, I do want to propose an amendment.
Go ahead.
I'd like to move to direct administration. Wait, Jen. To amend point 3.1.
I'm sorry, to amend.
Point 3.1. Closed hours. From 10 PM to 7 AM. And that should be in brackets, sorry. Not in brackets, sorry, quotations. No, the 10 PM to 7 AM should be in quotations. That's the quote from the point. Two, again in quotation. 1 hour after sunset. To 1 hour before sunrise. Or wording to achieve similar intent. If I could speak to it.
Please.
I mean, I'm all for going to stakeholder groups and having discussion with them about usage and what they feel is appropriate. And this can certainly be changed again at some point in the future as we see this come back to us. But in talking to the members of the community, early discussion about this, several, you know, I've had people point out, well, it should be longer. But in thinking about that too, though, there's a big difference between an appropriate reason for being in a public park at 10 PM in July, as opposed to being in a public park at 10 PM in December. So I think by changing the wording to more accommodate daylight hours, which fluctuates so much in our community, it gives enforcement better opportunity to be able to question people, you know, what are you doing in the park at this hour? And if it's at 10 o'clock in the summertime, yeah, okay, it's probably appropriate. 10 o'clock in the winter time, maybe not. Maybe we should ask that person what they're doing here. As I said, perfectly open to change in the future, but I just think it strikes a better balance between appropriate use and helps law enforcement as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. So council, the motion on the floor is an amendment to the council direct administration to amend 3.1 closed hours, 10 PM to 7 AM to 1 hour after sunset to 1 hour after or 1 hour before sunrise, or wording to that effect. Council, any discussion on the amendment? Councillor Taylor.
I agree with that. And I think that if we're going to go for public comment, we might as well go with something that we agree with the most. This has more flexibility than the 10 PM thing, and it allows better use in the lawn summer hours. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Chambers.
I won't be supporting the amendment. I wonder what that impact looks like when, you know, whether that's kids wanting to go skating on one of the rinks at one of our parks after supper. families going out and doing different things. I feel that we have a lot of dark hours and people still do use our dark hours in the winter to use parks and to use different areas depending on the weather that we have. So I won't be supporting the amendment as presented. I just think that there is still a lot of usage from the community, again, depending on the weather in parks areas in the evening in the winter. And I understand the intent of Councillor Stashik that from a fire chief perspective and enforcement, that would probably make things easier. But I do think there's a lot of, I'd hate kids to not be doing something in the evening in the winter because it's closed. So I won't be supporting it based on that.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think one thing that I have to stay focused on is this is complaint based. So if you have little kids out there or kids out there skating and nobody is complaining, it's not an issue. So this whole thing, in remembering what you, Mac had said and reading it in our notes, it's complaint based. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, one thing I probably should have mentioned, but neglected to when I brought this forward was that I was kind of under the assumption that some of the parks facilities that are designed for use after dark would still be open and they would have signage on them that, the outdoor rink is open for use from whatever, 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. And that's when the lights go off. I believe the lights on the tennis courts, hockey rinks, things like that, maybe on automatic timers. Look to administration. I'm not sure.
Administration.
Through the chair to all of council, yes, that is correct. The lights are on timers.
Yeah, so if I may, I kind of assume that those facilities that have lighting that's designed to be used in the dark hours would have their own separate signage that would be not inclusive of the park in general hours. Thank you for that. Just wanted to put that clarification forward.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Council, anything further on the amendment? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question on the amendment that council direct administration to amend 3.1 closed hours, 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. to 1 hour after sunset to 1 hour before sunrise. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion is carried 5-2 with Councillor Chambers and Mayor Nissen voting against. So council, the motion on the floor is that, let's see it again here. There we go. That council gives first reading to the Parks Bylaw number 1184 as amended. Councillor Hawes.
Yeah, just a clarifying question. I know that we don't have this second recommended motion yet, but if that does pass, when there's stakeholder consultation, will it be included that this was what we originally did, it's been amended to this, just to give the public and the stakeholders some things to chew on, as to their input? Like, is that the intent of administration? Because again, this is just first reading. And if we do have a motion of stakeholder engagement, then we can get some feedback from stakeholders. But is that the intent of administration?
CEO Panasiuk.
Through the mayor to members of council, short answer is yes. So, our intent and there's a recognition on our side that we still have some work to do here on this bylaw. We believe that we have achieved an intent, but there's a lot of nuance and there's a lot of particulars in each individual part that we need to do. So, I think this one, if council's willing to put forward first reading, we will be looking at this more broadly, looking at what other changes, but ultimately our intent for second and third is to bring back a document that's going to work for everybody. And we do have a number of different stakeholders who actually are operators, and it's operators of the park. We do have some who are owned half by the park, half by another association. So there's a lot of particulars, but we will be looking at any available options and trying to bring back something that will work the best for everybody.
Thank you, CEO Panasiuk. Counselors, anything further? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. The council gives first reading to Parks Bylaw number 1184 as amended. Counselors, please vote now. And that motion carries unanimously. Counselor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move to direct administration to engage stakeholders for input and return the bylaw and engagement results to a future meeting of council.
Would you like to speak to it, Counselor?
Just quickly, this is an opportunity for stakeholders, and I believe some of them were particular groups, but I'm assuming that any citizen could potentially put forward any concerns or any input of whatsoever. I mean, our citizens are our stakeholders. I know that in the report, there were specific groups, the Beaver Boardwalk Oversight Committee, and things, some other Hinton Mountain Bike Association. But this gives an opportunity to get that feedback and with then being able to come back with a fulsome draft for us to look at. So thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Haas. Counselors, the motion on the floor is that council direct administration to engage stakeholders for input and return the bylaw and engagement results to a future meeting of council. Counselor Taylor.
Administration, wouldn't you do that anyways?
CEO Panasiuk.
Through the mayor to members of council. That's a very difficult question to answer because I guess it would be depends on the nature of whatever bylaw that might be. But typically, if we do want to expend administrative resources to go out into any sort of process where we're spending time to solicit feedback from stakeholder groups, we do prefer to have that clarity up front from council. So there's clarity and council is directing the process.
And this does a
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Panasiuk. Council, anything further? Then we'll call the question. The council directs administration to engage stakeholders for input and return the bylaw and engagement results to a future meeting of council. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. Councilors, anything further for item 8.3 on the agenda? Seeing nothing, we'll move to item 8.4, ATE Contract Negotiations 2024. CEO Panasiuk.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. So we have included two motions here today. Once we do get to motion 2, we will provide a correction to the wording, if that's okay. There was just some more specific wording that was contemplated at the committee of the whole. One that council does, or sorry, one that administration does agree with and would like to recommend as a recommended action. But with that being said, for the presentation, I will turn this over to Mr. DeBodrup as well.
Good evening once again. Again, this afternoon or this evening rather, we are presenting for council my report on the ATE negotiations with the recommended action that council direct administration to give notice to terminate the existing contract with Global Traffic Group Limited and cease photo enforcement operations in the town of Hinton effective midnight, January 31st, 2024. And for administration to continue discussions with the town of Edson to provide ATE services. The implementation of the program be conducted on at least a revenue neutral basis. As discussed at committee on January 9th, the existing contract was given a 1-month extension to January 31st, 2024 to provide sufficient time for administration and Global to negotiate a satisfactory agreement. There were 4 specific restrictions that administration was to communicate to Global. That was significant increase in time spent in school zones and pedestrian zones, highly visible enforcement vehicle, no attempt to hide the enforcement vehicle, and significant reductions in time spent at the edges of town. Due to these additional restrictions to the already restricted access to more lucrative enforcement zones, Global was of the position they would not have a viable business model unless the existing restrictions would be lifted. In lieu of them being lifted, they proposed a flat monthly fee of $25,473, which equates to $305,676 a year, or 25% of the net revenue if the monthly fines exceeded that $25,473. Negotiations were stalemated on this item, and again, administration is recommending in brief that we terminate the existing agreement on January 31st, continue discussions with the town of Edson to provide those ATE services, and that the implementation of the program be conducted at least a revenue neutral basis. With that, I'll open it up for any questions council may have.
Thank you, Chief. Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council direct administration to give notice to terminate the existing contract with Global Traffic Group Limited and cease photo enforcement operations in the town of Hinton effective midnight, January 31st, 2024. If I could quickly speak to it.
Please.
I appreciate, administration going to the contractor, Global Traffic Group, and discussing, the changes, but unfortunately not able to come to an agreement. So I think, it just makes sense at this time to cease that contract and regroup if another motion is made. But it gives us an opportunity to discuss the future possibilities. So, but at this time, I'm in favor of just ending that contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, for myself, I also will be supporting the motion that's on the floor. I think photo radar has a place, but it has a place when used appropriately and for the purposes of ensuring the public that there's a safety component. And over the years, this has been a bit of a thorn in my paw. Things like hiding vehicles versus making sure that they're clearly marked and visible so that people driving by see them and sort of slow down. Interactions with the operators, personnel, and members of the public. And I appreciate, we had a bit of a tough laundry list that we gave the fire chief to go back and try to work with the contractor on it. So first of all, to Chief DeBoudrat, thanks a lot for taking that and trying to deliver on that, because it was tough. I know it was tough, but it was important. Our contractors should be spending more time in school zones, less time on the edges of town. And if the contractor could have delivered on that, I would have been great for that. But to come back and just price themselves out, in my opinion, to say, oh, well, it'll cost you $25,000 a month for this to be lucrative. Yeah, no, thanks. Thanks for your time. But in this case, if you can't provide these safety components, then there's other ways to do it. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be supporting the proposed motion too. Regardless of what else comes forward this evening, I'm in favor of terminating this contract. Like Councillor Magoon said, I think photo radar does have its place, but I think council's administrative priority is to ensure safety in our community. And that works at cross purposes when you partner with a for-profit business venture to provide that service. I can't fault the contractor. Their business, they're in business to make money. I think that the issue lies though in that when you try to combine those two things, they're not necessarily fully compatible, and it makes it really challenging from an administrative perspective, from council's perspective, to try and push the safety aspect of it when there's more lucrative things that the provider could do. So I'm all in favor of terminating the contract, looking at other options. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Taylor.
I'm in favor too. I'm not a supporter of photo radar anymore. Never was much of a fan. I need to see evidence that photo radar offers safety benefits and not just monetary ones. I've seen a number of well put together studies from universities that indicate that it has little or no effect on traffic. And that in conjunction with the fact that some of our recent rounds of global information that we've gotten indicate that 80% of our tickets were on the edges of the town, where people are increasing speed a bit, but not in an unsafe manner, has just led me to lose support for this as a tool. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Council, anything further? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question. The council direct administration to give notice to terminate the existing contract with Global Traffic Group Limited and cease photo enforcement operations in the town of Hinton effective midnight, January 31st, 2024. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion is carried unanimously. Councilor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move the council direct administration to continue to explore in-house managed ATE program, potentially in partnership with neighboring communities, with the report brought to a future committee of the whole meeting before September 30th, 2024. I believe there was an addendum part that was the direction was given at last committee meeting.
That is correct. And CEO Panassia, could we have the full language added to the amendment, please, or to the motion, please?
Because I do want that to be part of my motion. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Through the mayor and to the rest of council, my apologies for that, but the motion that was put forward that reached consensus at the committee of the whole was that council direct administration to continue discussions with the town of Edson to provide ATE services, and that the implementation of the program be conducted on at least a revenue neutral basis. So that was the wording of the committee of the whole. If that was the intent by Councillor Ostashik, we could certainly amend that.
If I may.
Yes.
What I would like to do is take the part that says, and the implementation of the program be conducted on at least a revenue neutral basis, and put that on the motion that I just gave. I do want to change it slightly and I'll speak to it.
Thank you, Councilor Ostashik, and go ahead and speak to it as it comes up.
Yeah, we'll just, if it's okay. We'll
You
just
can take the
make sure
time now.
it's captured. That looks good. If I could speak to it, please.
Please.
I like this motion better in that it doesn't tie us exclusively to working with the town of Edson. And it opens the door a little bit more to allow something like a cost sharing model or something where we're a true partner with another community or communities, perhaps. It doesn't tie us to contracting another community to provide services to us. One of the reasons for that is I think having a partnership option makes it a true partnership, and we're not just getting into a relationship where we're contracting someone else to provide services who may not have the town of Hinton's best interests in mind. I'm not saying another municipality would, but it is conceivable that they might use it as a revenue generation tool too. So I think this just gives administration a little bit more of an open door to explore some additional options, bring us back some recommendations for what they think best practices might be, and then we can consider them at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ostashik. Councilor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I appreciate Councilor Stashik's addition, but also adding more communities. I think that that's an absolute opportunity because if we can grow some partnerships with surrounding, other communities other than Edson, because I too am full support of a partnership. I'd prefer not to contract or get a service from another community. I'd like to be in that partnership, and the more partners we can have, potentially, the less of the costs that we might incur. And it also gives us that opportunity to build partnerships, as Councillor Magoon was saying, on safety. If we can negotiate some deal or some partnerships that all communities are looking, not as a catch revenue or anything, but as a safety measure in communities to slow down those speeders in high risk situations. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Taylor.
I don't support this for the reasons just given. I won't repeat them. I do have kind of a question, and I don't know who wants to answer it. With the four specific references that we gave to global, apply to the continued use of this tool, for example? Significant reductions in time spent on edges of town, no attempt made to hide enforcement, highly visible enforcement, significant increases in time spent in schools and pedestrian zones. Would those be the objectives of whatever we're looking at? Because I would be pleased if they were, even though I won't support photo radar in the future, but.
CEO Panasiuk.
Through the mayor to members of council. So what I'll say is looking into a possible partnership or in-house option gives us the ability to look at anything and build the program the way we see it working the best for our community. So I think that's the benefit of moving towards this, is because we do have that additional level of control. I think we have more options just due to the fact that the split in revenue is now all in our favor. So you can tailor that program more towards safety, but ultimately that's a future conversation to have as to what stipulations and how we want that program to look. So that can look however council decides at the time. Right now, the direction that we have on the floor is enough for us to engage in those conversations with neighboring municipalities to see if there's a feasibility, look at the different ownership models or anything else like that, and that more foundational work. But if we do decide to move forward, that would be at council's discretion.
Thank you, CEO Panasiuk. And Councillor Taylor, does that help answer your question? Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just in short, in moving forward, I know for myself, I would still want to see those be the base goal of what we're working with.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and specifically to Councillor Taylor's question, in the interest of not making the motion too long and not handcuffing administration too much, I didn't want to include that, but that is kind of my expectation going forward. I think council's iterated many times that the focus of an ATE program needs to be safety. So all four of those components help to increase the safety, understanding that there is going to be a reduction in revenue. That's unavoidable. But I think all four of those things enhance the safety component, even just the highly visible vehicle. It's like having a police cruiser parked on the shoulder of the road with speed traps set up. People see that and they slow down. When people see that bright green truck parked there, they're going to slow down. It also helps to manage the other comment about spending an inordinate amount of time on the edges of town where it's pretty low risk. This gives the opportunity to be able to make sure that they're set up in areas where there's high risk and high potential of incident. It gets the provider, or it gets the ATE vehicle away from those places where there's no pedestrian traffic or very little pedestrian traffic, where people are incrementally increasing speed because they know they're moving out of town, gets them into the school zones, gets them into the places where there is a high risk of potential injury. So I would expect that to be a component, but I didn't make it part of the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Councillor Haas.
Yes, to Councillor Taylor. I mean, that's my intent as well in support of this. I think it's also another opportunity, as Councillor Stashik was speaking, the potential for partnership means ATE is not always going to be in our community. So what other options? And I know there's a lot of different tools out there. For example, as you said, it's like a police cruiser, but there's other tools, mechanisms we can use potentially when we don't have AT in our communities, because they are in other communities that, we put up silhouettes, for example, of kids that people slow down. There's lots of other options that I think we could explore that can enhance the AT program and the safety in our community. So that's my intent, is to have that fulsome conversation and focus on the safety. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mayor Nissen. Yeah, to Councillor to Councillor Haas's point, I did have a question, and there was a time we had some portable speed device trailers that could be set up in different areas and they would measure speed and they would indicate, they were programmable. They would indicate when somebody was speeding. And I actually found those from a compliance perspective to be really, really beneficial. And people commented on to me that they were beneficial when they saw those. So when they saw those, they drove past them. It said they were speeding by, 10 kilometers over. They'd go, geez, I didn't even realize, and they'd slow down and get in compliance. I'm just wondering, what happened to those? I know we have some fixed ones now, and that's great, but those portable ones were good too. I'd like to know what happened to them, and maybe that's an option for additional compliance measures in the future.
CEO Panasiuk.
Thank you, Mayor. I will refer this to Mr. DeBodra.
Through the chair to all of council. Those two trailers still exist. They live at the ISB building. They're utilized by Public Works for construction zones and such. They can be placed anywhere we want in town. That's not part of the photo radar program, so we could put them anywhere in town that we feel we have a safety concern. If that is the desire of council to start utilizing them more in that fashion, we'll make arrangements. It's a shared resource with Public Works. So like when there's a construction zone going, we would move it to the area of greatest need.
Thank you, Chief DeBodra.
If I could follow up then.
Go right ahead.
Would administration require a motion of council to start doing that again? Because I don't believe there was a motion to stop doing it ever.
Through the chair, we would need a motion to that. That's just an operational item that we can coordinate those efforts through the different departments of the town.
So from a personal perspective, that is something I would like to see if administration wanted to start re-implementing that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Stashik. Councilor Taylor.
Yeah, I was on the council when that was done, and that those signs were bought from safety money, and they were specifically purchased as a traffic speed mitigation tool, and that's how they were sold to us. So you're entirely appropriate and in keeping with the council of 2013-17's direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor Haas.
Yeah, I'm glad this was brought up because now that the motion is to cease this contract, that leaves the conventional ways of safety, but administration potentially, and if it's a motion, but if can utilize the resources we currently have in the year's time to reduce, which actually may assist us in future decisions on ATE as well. If there are things and measures that we can take to actually slow down traffic, potentially, maybe the ATE is not necessary. Maybe there's alternatives. So I'd be interested personally, I not necessarily a motion, but for administration to consider what other tools they might be able to recommend to council, whether it's purchase of some things to slow down that traffic in the interim and continue to use those options as well. And then we can consider that, in the future when we're discussing it. So just some thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Haas. Councilor Taylor.
Along the lines of Councilor Hawes, the county of Strathcona, when they went away from ATE, they got their RCMP to look at actually where the speeding is occurring that's unsafe, that's causing problems. And they were able to target that behavior specifically down to a limited number of people that were causing problems by examining what are the real safety issues with speeding and where are they, who's doing them, and how can we target that. So there are some good learnings out there, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Council, anything further? Seeing nothing, we'll call the question that council direct administration to continue to explore in-house managed ATE program, potentially in partnership with neighboring communities, with a report brought to a future committee of the whole meeting before September 30th, 2024, and the implementation of the program to be conducted on at least a revenue neutral basis. Councilors, please vote now. And that motion carries 6-1 with Councilor Taylor voting opposed. Council, is there anything further for, oh, Councillor Hawes, there we go.
Sorry, if there's anything further on this, I have another request.
Council, anything further on item 8.4? Seeing nothing, Councillor Hawes.
Can I request a 7-minute break, please?
Roger that. We will take a recess for 7 minutes. We will return at 7:23.
Thank you, Mayor. I have nothing to add unless there's any questions about what was presented.
Thank you, CEO Panasiak. And these are both letters that council has sent out to Minister Lowen and one to Mr. Art Foss. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we accept council correspondence for December 2023. If I can quickly speak to it, I appreciate the addition. We typically get letters that we receive, but we don't currently or commonly put in letters that we sent. But I think this is a good practice to move forward. We know that they've been sent. It also gives the public an opportunity to see the letters that are being sent as well. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to echo what Councillor Hawes said. I think the addition of these is great. It gives the public a better understanding of some of the things that they may not necessarily see front and center that council and administration does. With that, though, I do have a question.
Go right ahead.
I'd just like to ask administration if they'd received any feedback from the province regarding the letter that was sent on December 4th regarding the converting the Mountain Pine Beetle Control Committee to a wildfire strategy committee.
CEO Panasiak.
Jen Gavin. Through the mayor, we have not received anything from the government of Alberta, but I believe that there has been some communities reaching out to Mayor Nissen on support of this in other municipalities.
Thank you, CEO Panasiak. And to clarify, I was approached by a reporter from Grand Prairie. It has come up in their city council. They received the letter that we had CC'd with them, and there does appear to be interest in, well, in our regional municipalities, we all look at the same forest risk, and there's definitely interest out there.
If I could follow up then?
Please go right ahead.
That's welcome news. I hope this is something that stays on council's radar though. And if we're not getting appropriate response from the province, maybe we need to take some additional steps to partner with some of those communities and make a more formalized request to the province to develop something similar to the Mountain Pine Beetle Committee to take a look at wildfires and threats to those communities. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Council, anything further? The motion on the floor is that council accept the correspondence for information. Councillors, please vote now. And that motion carried unanimously. That brings us to section 10 of our agenda this evening, notices of motion. 10.1 golf course capital improvement. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Taylor.
The actual written notice that I put in for the motion was, that was the title, but the actual motion is not there. It is that council direct that a portion of direct property tax revenues from any developments near the golf course be dedicated to a fund that will help pay for capital improvements on the golf course.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
So that wasn't put there for a particular reason, I guess, or because I sent that in. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Now we're not actually debating any motions this evening. This is just the notice of motion. Thank you. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mayor Nissen. Not looking to debate or discuss at all, just an administrative question. I'm just wondering how this would come back to council.
CEO Panasiak.
Through the mayor to members of council. So the procedure for notice of motion is that the councillor has the ability to provide the notice of motion, read it into the minutes. So it is now part our official minutes as a notice of motion. As per our procedural bylaw, that does come forward as an action item on the next meeting of council.
Thank you, CO Panasic.
If I may, I was more
Sure.
asking what the result of this would be, but I can save that until it comes forward as a formal motion. That's fine. No problem.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Item 10.2, golf course land sale, Councillor Taylor. This is your second notice of motion, Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, that was a more immediate thing. That's that the proceeds of any land sale from the development near the golf course be directed to a reserve that is dedicated to the capital improvement of the golf course. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. And item 10.3, golf course additional land investigation, Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The notice of motion is that council direct administration to investigate the possibility of leasing or purchasing additional lands adjacent to the golf course with a focus on lands along and near Highway 16, holes 16, 17, and 18. And I believe I had on my notice as well that and I would double check on this, that the intent was that it's certainly not limited to those, but that's sort of a starting point for the investigation piece. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. And with that, section 10 is complete. We move on to section 11, reporting, and 11.1, council reports. We'll start at Councillor Stashik's end of the table this time. Councillor Stashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nothing to report.
Thank you. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a couple of things. First off, had a ASH meeting, and business as usual, but there is, again, we're getting great results from the upcoming events. Currently, I think we've sold over 100 tickets to, oh man, thank you, George Canyon. Escaped me there for a moment, but looking for more. But the other thing too, we had a BBOC meeting, and the major part of that discussion was on the terms of reference. The group discussed, council wanted to take a look at the terms of reference, and we made some headway on some recommendations to the group, the size of the group, and who also is part of the group, trying to broaden the opportunity for citizens to become part of that group. And then we also I had a library board meeting last night. Typically we only have one a month, but we added a special meeting this month to discuss the future capital projects to the facility. So we had a fulsome conversation about that and how we want to move forward with the reserve fund. So that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Chambers, you need to. Thank you.
I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Councillor Chambers. Councillor Race.
Thank you, sir. Nothing to report.
Councillor Taylor. Thank you, Councillor Taylor. I also have nothing to add at this juncture. Chief Administrative Officer reporting.
Thank you, Mayor. Not much to report other than we have been operating through this cold snap, and when you're operating in the deep freeze, things often go wrong. So we have had a number of breaks or valves. We did have to shut down our pool temporarily due to some freezing of the lines and a freezing of an acid barrel. Our garbage truck had broken down. So there was a number of things over the cold snap, but we're very happy that the weather is a little bit warmer. We can get back to normal. And we will be doing a lot of snow removal in the next few days.
Thank you, CO Panasic. And CO Panasic, can you confirm there are no closed session agenda items?
That is correct.
Thank you, CO Panasic. That brings us to section 13 and item 13.1, Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we adjourn.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, motion on the table is for adjournment. Can we send that for voting? You did? There we go. Councilors, please vote now. Who's missing? And that carries unanimously. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.